Well, here we are. We are here live. I think this is working. I'll check the comments. If we have any issues, let me know. But we are here live at Casino Regina. I have Jim Mullin here. Jim, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I may have been the Canadian that has made the most appearances on the Markcast. Have you tracked these things?
I would have to say, and also one of the first. I think you led the way.
Yeah.
You said, I'll go on any podcast once. I might not always go on every podcast more than
Wow,
once.
look at this.
But now Jim is back on here. Guys, let me know. I think we should be good. Let me know if we have any audio issues. Jim, we're here today, Casino Regina, here for the next 2.5 hours. Lots of guests stopping by. Jim's here. Rob Vanstone should be coming. I've heard Pinball is stopping by. Yes. What do you think? Talk about the environment of Grey Cup this year. Different than, we're back to kind of the norm, right?
Well, I'd say it's about 75% of the norm. I'd say the energy isn't hopping the way it would be at some of the previous Grey Cups I've been at. I have lost count. This is about 17 or 18 for me. It would have helped if there was a home team here. It really would have. I think it would have energized things. The other thing is that, the Grey Cup used to be a 50,000 seat type of event. And the CFL has scaled this back somewhat. They've taken it down to actual stadium capacity now. And I think that's part of what we're feeling in this town right now is a 33,000 seat Grey Cup with a lot of locals that bought tickets for this thing early in the year and are now selling them online to people coming in from Winnipeg.
Well, that's what I was going to ask because I bought tickets because I didn't know. I never assumed we're going to get media, and mine are still for sale. I can't sell them. So had they have scaled it up with I don't know if they would have hit capacity if they would have added more.
Yeah, it's something that you have to plan ahead for now, especially with the cost of bringing in bleacher seats. There is a substantial cost behind that. I think it's, the CFL probably already spent their money on that for Touchdown Atlantic with the stadium expansion they did there. Most of that would fall on the local organizing committee, though. I will say that the local organizing committee's done a good job of keeping everything under one tent out close to Mosaic Stadium. Nearly all of the team rooms are there. Edmonton did a big breakfast out at the Connexus Center earlier today. I wasn't at that one, but I just had lunch with somebody that was there. She said it was just outstanding. So, all of the parts are back in place again, right? All of the basics are back in place. The only thing missing is the old Grey Cup parade, which has been hit and miss over the years. It'd be nice to bring that back. It'd be a good way for people to get some fresh air after a previous night of, in my case, drinking Fireball with media members, Murray McCormick.
We were out late. I mean, for our standards, we were out late last night, and then I woke up today. We slept in, and I saw people post 2-3 hours before. Oh, we're at Spirit of Edmonton breakfast. I thought I am too old for that.
Yeah, no, I'm too old for it too. I treat these with kid gloves now. I pace myself. I'm very conservative. I got work to do here too, right? I've met international delegates from other IFAF nations. Finland's here, Denmark's here. Actually took them out through the activation area.
That's okay.
Oh, there we go. Texas Hold'em.
Texas Hold'em. We're here live. We got the action here. We're in the
we do have the action, and I'm not giving a cent to them, by the way. I will not. The only thing I will bet on is horses.
Wow. I don't bet on
science
sports.
to it. Yeah, I don't bet. I don't bet on sports because it just takes the fun out of it for me. And I'm partially sponsored by a sports betting company, which I'm not sure I could even mention on your podcast.
So I want to talk to you. We were, and not to, delve into anything too deep last night, but we did talk, Commissioner Ambrosi had a State of the League address, right? We talked, apparently we're moving playoff games to Saturday. We're working on the American DVD. Where do you want to start with that? Was that your biggest takeaway, the playoffs to Saturday?
The playoffs on Saturday probably were my biggest takeaway. And, when I heard that, well, first of all, it didn't come out at the media Q&A. It went to the fan Q&A. And it was also weirder because the fan Q&A, I think, was probably a little rougher on Randy.
That's what I heard.
The media Q&A was. So, the fans are kind of restless with the quote-unquote state of the league right now. When it was moved back to Saturdays before, it was kind of a flop, right? One of my concerns is, well, I got several concerns. One of my concerns is for the semifinals, which are a hard turnaround and a quick sell. If you don't know until the final week, you're taking a day of sales away. And in a gate-driven league, that's tough. You and I were both at the Lions semifinal on the Sunday. Much easier to get in and out, once again, in a gate-driven league on a Sunday to a game instead of a Saturday. I think that gate numbers are being discounted for TV numbers. I hope that between TSN, Bell, who owns TSN, and the CFL, there's a path to get this on conventional TV, which is the CTV network in this case, where NFL games are played in conjunction with TSN on the Sunday. But I don't know. I'll wait and see how this turns out. Maybe it's a good idea for football fans to sort out their Saturdays and their Sundays between the NFL and the CFL. The one thing that I do know, though, reaching out to my youth sports friends, is they weren't consulted in this. And Saturdays is a huge day for college football in this country. And, I understand that, it's local markets that drive these things. But, a discussion around this going into this might have been nice.
Well, that was the theories I saw online was they clearly must be angling some sort of TV deal, whether in Canada, the U.S., both, whatever that is necessitating that Saturday playoff game. It is weird that they wouldn't consult U Sports about kind of crowding their space, right?
Well, and it's also strange with the Saturday when you take a look at, and Canadians don't know this actually, but if you go into any American market, you got cable. How many college football games can you see on your television? And we're in a country right now where live over in another room. I've got a friend, not a friend of the show, by the way. It's John Hodge. I'm sitting watching the game with Hodge.
Wow.
Yeah, sorry, I dropped the name, dropped the bomb, dropped the name. But we're watching a Canadian college football game on a laptop computer. It's a national semifinal. There's one thing I'm angry about today is watching a national semifinal for a national championship on a freaking laptop computer because you can't put it on a screen because it's not on television. I know the TV isn't the be-all and end-all anymore of distribution platforms, but it's still the backbone and it's still the core. And to not have a game of this importance on national TV for this organization is completely inexcusable.
It seems weird. It also seemed, I think a lot of people, at least I saw on Facebook chat, are thinking that maybe Ambrose, last year we had Genius Sports. Okay, we're doing this revenue sharing, whatever that means. Maybe we'd have an announcement this year, a TV deal, working on the America with ESPN, all that kind of stuff. Are you surprised that there wasn't anything except really this Saturday playoff move?
I think it's, unfortunately, coming out of the pandemic, it's a slow build. And one of the reasons it's a slow build is, with the economic hit that was taken by shutting things down during the pandemic. And then I think an additional economic hit by not being active during the pandemic. I believe that the league office itself is smaller. They had to lay people off. They didn't necessarily hire everybody back. They pushed out a lot of the secondary work to the teams and individuals in the teams. So realistically, you only have so much capacity as an organization to address these things in front of you. And, in fairness to the CFL, I can understand why this is a slow build. I think it's fortunate for Randy Ambrosie that the Board of Governors have given him enough time on the calendar to pull this off because, there are some pretty cranky fans at that fan thing.
But I don't get that. I was on Rob Pearson's show yesterday. I appreciate it. I don't what are fans upset about? I get why media people are complaining sometimes. I don't get what is the regular Saskatchewan fan upset about in the CFL?
Well, first of all, they're upset about their team.
Well, yeah.
I mean that
Hey.
sets everything into motion, right? There's a set of grievances in front of them, and then they're going to grieve even more about slipping attendance numbers, people not showing up to games, what they see coming out of Edmonton in terms of attendance. Uncertainty in Toronto. There's a lot of items and issues around the league that many people have seen before, and they have a fear. They know that teams can shut down. They know that the Ottawa Renegades shut down. They know that the old Alouettes shut down. They know that they're on an edge right now, where if things don't break in the right way, there could be trouble. And we're heading into challenging economic times as well. So I think there's a lot of collective anxiety out there. Did the league, through their communications, fully address it? I think the only thing that they addressed is I think they asked for a little forgiveness and a little patience. And, it's something that the fan out there, that a stakeholder like myself, that's all we can give them, because we don't have control of that outcome. That if they're asking for it, we got to give it to them.
I'm just always interested in that, because I live in this and we live in this. Like, same with the XFL. I'll get there and complain about all this stuff, and I have people be like, "Reed, I don't even think about that. I don't even care." So I'm genuinely curious. Like, what does Bill Saskatchewan come and like, "Hey, Randy, this is what I'm upset about." Like, it's good. I mean, I'm glad that they're vocalizing that, because I'm a firm believer that you have to vocalize. Sitting around and saying like, "This is fine," doesn't do anything, right? You have to vocalize when there and tangible things that you can work on.
Well, there's some things I agree with Randy on. There's some things that I don't, and that's going to be natural within a structure like this, right? Where we have different concerns in amateur football than professional football does. They look at different outcomes. That being said, I give Randy Ambrosie full credit for standing up in front of a bunch of cranky Saskatchewan fans with a supporting cast from around the country and taking bullets without a flak jacket on. That takes guts. I'll give him full points for that.
He mentioned not having an end date for his tenure, right? It's obviously he would like to serve as long as the Board of Governors. Would you expect anything different? I mean, obviously, it's been a really hard last tenure for him. I mean, it's been a tough 4 or 5 years for him right now, right?
Well, like anything, everybody had plans in 2019. Like, if you would have asked me at Football Canada what our plans were, we would have been staging a World Championship in 2020, stepping in for USA football. We would have had games on TV. We would have been like, we woulda, coulda, shoulda, and it cut us down. And I think the one thing that when people talk about the CFL, Randy's in a servant relationship in terms of his leadership with the 9 teams, right? The 9 teams give him so much leash. He tries to, in that office, tries the best they can to build something out. But as we saw with not playing in a bubble in Winnipeg back during the pandemic, some teams would, some teams didn't. And you can't, it's really hard politically in this league with these 9 teams with all of these different interests to bring people around to a common cause. If somebody wants to sit out on something, they will and they can.
If you had the great Ambrosie here as we approach the end of his, I think, original tenure, right? Then he's got to renegotiate. I don't know how all that works. Like grading on that. And then I do see we have our next guest, Rob, here. So we'll transition him in here in a little bit. But thoughts on that?
You know what? As someone who's the head of a national sports organization, I'm going to put my NSO hat on and take my media hat off. And I'm not going to comment on that because I think that's probably the wisest thing. I am not going to make a comment on where Randy's at with the Board of Governors. That I had my piece during the CBA. I think I'll leave it at that.
Final thoughts before I let you go. We do have a big matchup tomorrow, but I like this show to exist more than just like Winnipeg, Toronto, because, come 5 o'clock tomorrow, this doesn't matter. But who do you see having the edge in that?
It's Winnipeg. It's Winnipeg. And, look, Depending on the sports book you look at, it's anywhere between 5 points to 6.5 points in Winnipeg's favor. I think Winnipeg covers. I think this is shaping up like a Toronto Saskatchewan final. I want to say from 1997. 97. I think it was Doug Flutie's last against the Reggie Slack and the Saskatchewan Roughriders. The Riders came in kind of outsiders. Toronto clearly the strongest team, kind of close through 2 quarters, insight in the third, and they just blew the doors off them. My call, my score: Winnipeg 39, Toronto 17.
Okay.
Nobody's coming up and scoring with 39-17. I can guarantee you that.
Well, Jim, I appreciate you coming by. You weren't sure if you were going to be in town today. I certainly appreciate it. And like you said, all the times you've come on the show and everything else you've done.
I planned my trip around the Markcast.
Well, there you go. You can't get much better endorsement than that.
What a sucker.
Well, we'll get you out of here. We'll transition. I think we have Rob. Rob, you ready to hop on here? We'll bring Rob in. Jim, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. We're going to bring Rob Vanstone in here as we transition again live at Casino Regina here in Saskatchewan. You can see Dorothy, some of our other fans and listeners behind. Darrell's coming up. We'll get to him in a minute. He's early. We're good. We're going to get Rob Vanstone in here. Leave your comments in the chat. Who do you see winning today? We have Toronto, Winnipeg tomorrow, talking other CFL stuff today. We have good friend. You can sit right here, Rob Vanstone here. Sans Candid today, but we're in your hometown. Rob, how are you doing today?
I'm okay, thank you. The dog's not feeling too well, but I made it. So she's a bit of a vacuum cleaner on walks, and something got to her. She must have picked up something that got to her today. So maybe she just looked at my column, but her stomach isn't feeling that well today. So
gotcha. Well, Rob, we're here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Great
We're in your home province. We're here in Regina. What do you make of the activities, the excitement, everything else happening?
It's really been a nice demonstration of resilience by the community, because there was so much let down with the way the Rough Riders performed or didn't perform, and I think there were the initial fears that would just cast a pall over the entire Grey Cup Festival, and I think early on, as a week or two ago, it was like. And there's a fair amount of tickets on the resale market, but that's going to be interesting tomorrow to see how many of the seats are actually occupied. You might want to hire some of those Golden Globe Awards seat fillers. I'm available for a nominal fee, and that may be the kind of a symbol of the frustration or the lack of production for the Rough Riders this year. But if you look at how it's been executed, once everything started kicking into gear Tuesday, Wednesday. It's very reminiscent of the previous 3 Grey Cups here, not as reminiscent of 2013 because of the exclusion of the home team, but the organizers, and they've done a great job. And I'm sure you've gotten around, kind of gotten a feel for the vibe, and the fact that people such as yourself see fit to come all this way to experience a Grey Cup in Saskatchewan, I think is a testament to how special this event is.
I will be honest. Dorothy and I were really not looking forward to coming to Regina. I'll be honest. We were really scared.
That's my fault.
But no,
it'll be over soon. Don't worry.
We were really scared of the cold, and we hear it's windy, and like you hear all the jokes. We're from America. You hear all the jokes, Canada, everything else. Yeah. But like, we have had the best time, the best food. I mean it. Like the restaurants, the bars, the people here have been awesome. Like we've had a blast everywhere we've gone. We haven't gone. So what is it? Do you think that, obviously Grey Cup moving around and Regina this year being able to showcase, is that a good place, a good way for like other CFL communities to kind of showcase what they have and kind of bring people in? Like, do you think Regina's doing a good job in embracing that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is, I think, the place that above all others that is going to embrace it. I've lived here for 58 years. I'm still scared of the cold. So don't single yourself out, or Dorothy. It's there's some days that it just isn't tolerable. But what really sinks in for me, I think they got close to 1,200 volunteers, and I'm not sure that the term volunteer is exactly accurate, because they're paying $85 each to volunteer. It's sort of the antithesis of volunteering. They're paying for it, and yet more than 1,000 people signed up for that. And that as much as anything just blows me away, and I think is is emblematic of the type of spirit that there is here. And not just in Regina, but I think everywhere I've been to a Grey Cup, and this is my 15th now, you see it. Even in supposed areas such as Toronto where the interest isn't as fervent, once you get to the venues, once you get to the game, it's still a really neat bit of Canadiana that I think, especially as I get older, I appreciate even more.
I got a question for you here from the chat. Is Dane Evans wearing a green jersey next year?
I don't think so. Although there would be a neat historical precedent in that in 1951, the Rough Riders really, really, really needed a quarterback, and they signed Glenn Dobbs, former Heisman Trophy finalist out of the University of Tulsa. Dane Evans emanates from the University of Tulsa. So maybe there's a good omen there. I really like his attributes. I really like his attitude, his accountability. He's got a great arm, but I don't think he's going to be on a lot of teams' preferred lists. He certainly isn't on Hamilton's right now, as evidenced by the Bo Levi Mitchell trade. Maybe he's as good a bet as any to come here, but I'm not sure that is going to be at the top of their list. Then again, look at Zach Collaros. Maybe I'm equivocating here, but look at Zach Collaros and how he was written off 3 years ago, and now he's twice the league's most outstanding player and about to win the Grey Cup.
Signed a huge contract.
3 years on $1.8 million, and that's one of the ultimate comeback stories. So I don't think you necessarily rule someone out on the basis of being unsuccessful somewhere, because look at Zach Collaros, look at McLeod Bethel Thompson and all the itinerant pro football career that he has had en route to playing in this Grey Cup. And a lot of people wrote him off last year after a playoff game in which he struggled, and now he's in the Grey Cup. So I guess never say never in the Canadian Football League, but Evans isn't a name that I hear a lot around here. People obviously have an appetite for bringing in Bo Levi Mitchell. You should Trevor Harris shake free in Montreal. I think people here would be open to that. Mitchell and I think Harris are the two biggies. But after that, it's a bit of a coin flip.
Well, it's getting slim. That was asked, and we have our announcement here. That was asked yesterday to Ambrosi by Farhan, friend of the show, at the press, the media press conference. Like, is there a problem with getting enough quarterbacks up here to Canada now? Here it's like we're scraping the barrel. Saskatchewan needs someone. Hamilton. I guess Bo Levi, but is that an issue right now?
I think it is across football. PJ Walker is starting or has been starting in the National Football League, and Jacoby Brissett, and there's some pretty marginal starting quarterbacks right now in the National Football League. So then if you start looking across the football universe, it's like, well, who's going to start in the XFL? Who's going to start in the United States Football League? Who's going to start in the Canadian Football League? And I think part of the issue too is that once upon a time, the Kyler Murrays of the world would automatically end up in the Canadian Football League and wouldn't get a sniff from the NFL unless they were going to play running back, receiver, defensive back, etc. That has not been the case for a number of years now. And so I think the NFL is taking the uber athletic quarterbacks that once upon a time found a haven in the Canadian Football League. And look at Lamar Jackson, for example. The Lamar Jacksons of the world 30 years ago would never have played football in the Canadian, played in the National Football League as a quarterback. And look at the way he's been playing. So once the CFL lost its niche in terms of getting the American quarterback that wasn't your classic Terry Bradshaw, 6'3", 210 with an arm, you could throw the ball to Peoria. Once that template changed, I think that started to make it more difficult across the Canadian Football League and in other fledgling leagues to get the quarterbacks that might have been at one point deemed not entirely in adherence to the NFL's template.
In terms of the actual matchup, right, I've seen a ton of riders here everywhere. As would be expected. Trying to get interest, like you said at the top, from non-local, from locals, from teams that aren't from here. Who do you make to win the game, and what are you looking forward to in the matchup?
Well, my dog picks Toronto, and I pick Winnipeg. So I guess the smart money's with Toronto. How do you not pick Winnipeg unless there's some level of limitation that Zach Collaros is facing with his ankle? I don't think from everything that's been said, that Zach Collaros is going to be like a shadow of himself. If it turns out there's 30 or 40% version of Zach Collaros, then maybe that makes it more interesting. But I really can't see a path to victory for the Argonauts. I thought maybe the path to victory would have been a foot of snow, Buffalo type weather, and then all bets are off because you're just not even playing a real game of football at that point. I thought if maybe if the elements were the great equalizer, then that becomes a pick 'em. But it's supposed to be a nice day. Winnipeg's been there before. They know what they're doing. They're the best team in the league. They're 15-3. I just don't know how you pick against Winnipeg. Although in 2004, people didn't think Toronto would win. They won. In 2017, I think a lot of people laughed at the notion that Toronto would even interest playing the Calgary Stampeders. That was a supposed route, and the Argos won 27-24. The last two Grey Cups, the Argos have won. They have won them in the role of the underdog. So maybe this is a role that they are ideally suited for. Pinball, I'm sure, remembers it well.
Well, Rob, I really appreciate it. Dan, I think Dan's ready to come on. Oh, come on. We're going to get Dan Ralph on here. Rob, I so appreciate it getting to meet you in person.
Finally.
We'll get Candy here at some point, but I really appreciate it. Your city's been wonderful, and I really thank you so much for coming by.
It's really great to have you here, and I hope to return the favor and visit your beautiful area.
You got a place to stay when you come to Seattle, man.
Well, the dog will be a good guest anyway. Reed, thank you so much. And it was great to meet Dorothy.
Thank you so much. Awesome. I'll take that back here. We'll get Rob out. We'll bring Dan in here if Dan's ready, and then we'll get Frank on the call here next. Got Dan Ralph coming in here again live from Casino Regina today here in Saskatchewan. Really appreciate it. Dan, you were brave enough to join me last year in Hamilton. Came back for more. How are you doing?
I'm a sucker for punishment. What can I say?
How are you doing here?
Everything's great here. Everything's great. It's nice to go to a Grey Cup in a community where football matters.
It seems like, and I mean, Rob was saying, obviously you'd prefer, Saskatchewan to be in it, but it does seem like people are genuinely really excited.
They are. And, and I mean, just to get here, I was on a shuttle talking to the driver. He was talking about, he was thinking about giving up his tickets because the riders weren't in it. And then he saw the weather forecast for the weekend. He went, hey, maybe. And so he's hanging on to his 3. So, this is my 3rd time here for a Grey Cup. And like I said, it's nice to be in a community where football matters as opposed to where I call home. So
you were with us yesterday, the media address, Randy Ambrosi, all that. A lot came out, even more came out after the media address. What was the biggest storyline from you from yesterday from the commissioner?
I found it was more of the same, long on optimism, short on specifics. I mean, his declaration that CFL 2.0 is still alive and well was sort of somewhat surprising to me. He discussed the possibility of moving playoff games to Saturday, and then an hour later it makes the announcement to fans. I have a bit of a problem with that, but
why?
Well, because if it's news, it should go to the news people first. And but I get it. I get it, right? Randy's one of the people, so
I did laugh. I think it was on Twitter or Facebook, and they're like, people ask, well, why didn't it come out at the media one? They said, well, they should have asked about it. It's like
we did.
But also, it's like, how do you know? Like, Randy, are you?
Yeah, I mean, if I'll be honest, I mean, we had heard it obviously, and it was mentioned and discussed, and he talked about the merits of it, but never. And as soon as you talk about the merits of it, it's on the table. So are you going there? Anyway, if ifs were skiffs, we'd all be sailors.
I liked the very blunt question. I can't remember if it was Britain. I can't remember who asked it about the global and global 2.0. Like, has it made any substantial money at all?
Not a dime.
Did that surprise you?
No. Because the whole, I mean, in my mind, the whole globalization trek has been about trying to get revenue streams from TV deals. The year before, in 2018, they brought Mexico, the football to Mexico, and they were very, very bullish about having CFL games there, about creating a TV revenue stream. which has not come. So to me, this was Randy trying to push the global initiative to try and increase revenues. And from what I'm told, they spent a lot of money traveling to 10 places to try and get partnerships and going to Japan and all this. And the money hasn't come back yet. So
what would you see them do as opposed to that? I mean,
you know what? You know what? I mean, I would like to see more grassroots involvement from the CFL. I don't see much of it in my market in Toronto and Southern Ontario. I'd like to see that. I would like to see them try and get another TV deal with another corporation, if it's possible, to get games on more than just one broadcast partner. Again, is it possible? Smarter people than me are going to answer that question. Just me on the outside looking in, those are two places where I would like to at least see a start.
I was actually surprised yesterday. God forbid American TV rights were brought up. I mean, like, I was like floored.
Yeah.
To me, that's the logical spot.
Agreed.
What do you do there?
I mean, I always thought. I mean, unfortunately, the TV deal with ESPN was always about exposure and not about revenue. And I would like to hope that maybe now you can, if your numbers are good enough, maybe you can get more revenue from it. I like the idea of channeling everything to 226 so that when all those TV deals expire at once, now you've got a bit more clout, right? I can talk to you, I can talk to them, and try and get something together. You're never gonna. I mean, I like the model what the NFL does, and they've got multiple broadcast partners. I mean, you can't compare the CFL to the NFL, but I think that would be to get two or three different revenue streams would certainly help.
Well, or at least, God forbid, being able to leverage two against each other.
Yeah,
I mean, it's hard. It's hard to me because we get criticized a lot in America because I talk USFL as well. And there's been all this, ratings, whatever. And then the CFL come out and they'll get like 84,000 viewers. And people go, well, see, nobody cares. I go, that's with literally zero promotion, buried 1,800 menus deep in ESPN Plus. Like, it's just not even fair to compare that.
Exactly. Well, and it's and I mean, I don't even know how to read television viewership numbers now anyway, because I'm told the numbers now are different than what they were 5 years ago, and the interpretation of them are different. But I've always thought when it comes to TV, the more the merrier, and I mean, you want to build your product, you want to strengthen your brand. And I think the way you do that is you just get it out in different venues, right? And I've always liked the idea of a TV deal in the U.S. We had U.S. expansion once upon a time. There was exposure to it, and I think people who are diehard football people will take a look. And who knows? They may like it, they may not, but let them take a look.
Well, and I totally agree because we get all these, and I don't put USFL and XFL in that, but we get all these other fluky, Major League Football, and there was like the Freedom Football League, like Ricky Williams was starting one and something. I get all these people asking about all these other leagues. June to November, you have football to watch every weekend. I mean, every week, 4 games a week. Like, it's crazy to me that I think if they just figured out a way to get that in front of more people, and you never have to worry about it going away or team, it's all, this isn't like a one and done. Players can get invested in that.
Well, I know. I mean, in Canada, from September to Grey Cup, you get football on TV 5 nights a week with the CFL and the NFL. And for a football junkie like me, that's great. That's great. And I mean, I got to believe there are people down south who are the same way. They just want to watch football. And why not? Let them.
Question for you. I was surprised yesterday, not all the same familiar faces I saw back last year, right? Because I don't know any different. I was in Hamilton. I hear, not everyone's sending everybody or people are making decisions about that. Are you surprised with the volume of media here, greater or less than you expected?
It's about what I expected. Okay. The numbers have been going down probably for about the last 5 years, certainly before COVID. And so, I mean, it is a shrinking pool, sadly. Organizations that used to send 2 people to Grey Cup, some of them aren't sending any. And if they're members of the organization that I write for, they're taking our stuff and they're not sending their staff. to save money. So yeah, even other organizations that used to send 10, they're down to 4. So I guess it's the economics of the business right now, but it's a little concerning when you look around and when what used to be 100 people is now dwindled down to under 40. And I mean, we had the awards and the FRC votes on the player awards. You take away 9 head coaches, we had 41 FRC members voting on the awards, and that's low. That's not a very strong number, unfortunately.
Well, I don't know if that's like a print media issue, CFL, everything combined. I think there's a confluence. I don't think that's just a Canadian Football League issue.
No, and it's not just a Canadian media issue either. It's a North America issue, but I mean it's a trend that we've seen happening. Like I said, for about the last 5 or 7 years. People that I know that I used to see at Grey Cup, the last time I saw some of these guys was 212 in Toronto. That's 10 years ago, right?
You're a Toronto guy here. I do like to talk about the game. I like to have the conversation be a little more evergreen, but big matchup. I'm excited. Is this a worthy Grey Cup that we're approaching here?
It is. And it's not, I mean, this is my 30th. And I've seen a number of them where a team comes in as the overwhelming favorite. And when you get down to a 1-game winner take all, anything can happen with weather and what have you. I mean, Toronto's in the Grey Cup for the first time in 5 years. And in 2017, they were heavy underdogs to Calgary, and they won 27-24. Calgary came to 3 straight Grey Cups, were the heavy favorites in 2 of them, lost the first 2. And even last year's Grey Cup, Winnipeg was a big favorite. They were pushed overtime, and they had to come back in the fourth quarter to force overtime. Well, Hamilton forced overtime, but they had to make a game of it in the fourth quarter. And then in 2019, Hamilton was the big favorite, and Winnipeg pulled off the upset. So, I mean, I don't expect the upset to be pulled this on tomorrow, but the potential's there, certainly.
Awesome. Frank, we'll get you ready here next. Coming up, I had a question for you on here from Wayne Jones, was talking, Toronto needs to market the team to the youth. I mean, we've talked about this on the show, I mean, ad nauseum, but, does it help here? They're in the Grey Cup. If they win the Grey Cup, does that make a difference? I mean, it's not that they're not a successful franchise, right?
Yeah,
That's the problem too. I mean, you see dwindling numbers in Ottawa or Edmonton, you go, well, this makes sense, right? But Toronto is a good team.
Yeah. I you know what? The Grey Cup won't hurt it. And Ryan Dinwiddie, the head coach, went on yesterday and basically said that the thought is if we win and we create some interest and we create some momentum, maybe the organization can take that into the off season. Maybe. They won the Grey Cup in 2017, didn't do it. They won 2 Grey Cups with the guy who I think is the greatest CFL player in history, and that's Doug Flutie. And they still couldn't do an uptick in attendance. So will it help? It won't hurt. Let's put it that way. But I mean, I just think there are philosophical problems in Toronto, and that you can't be solved by just with a Grey Cup, sadly. So
is McLeod retiring?
He sure gave that impression. And the other guy who gave that impression was Andrew Harris too. So it could be the swan song for both. I mean, the thing that's compelling to me about McLeod is he's married. He's got a young daughter who, you just see him interact with her. She means the world to him. And the man has been a football gypsy for the last 10, 15 years. If he wins, I think that might be the swan song for him. I don't get the impression he's been bad with his money. I don't get the impression his wife apparently does very well too. So, he plays football because he loves it. And I think the opportunity to stay home with his little girl might just be enough to say, you know what, spending 6 months out of the year in Canada, I'm not sure I want to do this anymore.
Well, I have a question. We're going to bring on our next guest, Candid Frank. Dan, I so appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Coming on, on the remote, in person, everything else. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much again.
Anytime. Thank you.
Awesome. We're going to bring on Candid Frank here if he's ready. We're going to bring him on. A couple comments talking about, CFL isn't global. Jared's talking about that. We have Candid Frank here. Will you help me pronounce your last name, Candid Frank?
Pretend it's Stanisci. So ISCI is ISHI in Italian,
Well, there you go.
right? So that's how.
And hold that rifle up close to you. I appreciate you coming today. We spent a lot of time hanging out last year at Grey Cup too, right?
That's right.
What do you make of everything happening this time? Is it better, worse than you expected?
Much better.
And how so?
Well, we've had two, the Western and Eastern final. I really believe that it doesn't matter which quarterback would have won out of those four. I think any of the four could have been a good Grey Cup quarterback. And it's been a while since we've had that. The other thing is we've become very accustomed over the past couple of years of seeing the defenses demolish the offenses. We finally have an opportunity to see how offenses work because they need more time to get together. We always see in every season, the season starts and the defense have an advantage and the offenses pick up later. But because of the pandemic and because of the way things were iffy, nobody knew what was going on, we finally have a stable situation where all the players, the coaches, everybody's on the same page and they can be on the same page, not just physically, but emotionally, because I'm sure there's a lot of, reticence when you're under the conditions that we're in before.
You're a Toronto guy,
Yeah.
right? I asked Dan, I love McLeod Bethel-Thompson. We've tracked him even during the spring league and the off CFL during the COVID year. As good as he is, there's still all these weird detractors and he's not good enough or he's not this, not that. I think in the world of the CFL, I think McLeod is doing pretty damn well.
I agree with you. And really what it comes down to is you play your whole life, and in his case, he's in his mid-30s. You play your whole life and all you're doing is going for a championship. And everything he's done the past 14 teams I think he's played for, all the work he's done to be a quarterback, all the stuff he's done to be a pro, it's going to come down to 60 minutes. Whether he's a good quarterback or not, it's going to be defined by what happens here tomorrow.
Would be really cool in my view if this is his swan song, what a way to end it. I mean, whether or not you win it, making it to the Grey Cup, everything he's gone through, I think Dan said he's been a gypsy of of these leagues and teams and all this kind of stuff. It would be a really cool way to, win or lose, making it to the Grey Cup is no easy feat.
Not whatsoever. He has worked very hard. He's become very emotional. This thing's really important to him. We're seeing all the interviews. We're seeing that he's very passionate. We're seeing that he's, he's the kind of guy that you ask him a question, he'll get in deep on the question. He'll dig in real good. But I think what he needs is a little bit of a break where, his ability gets a chance to shine a little bit. But the way the system works, it's not really intended that way, especially now when you have two really good running backs going for the Argos. His arm isn't going to be what they're going to rely on, even though the weather's going to be better tomorrow than many people suspected, and therefore it'll be more of a normal football game instead of a snow bowl.
Yeah, I was a little concerned. I love, and I know it's like this proud Canadian, and we got to have it in the dead of winter and freezing cold. But it is nice to just be able to have like a good football game, right?
So I prefer a good weather football game because for me, it's not football. You can say what you want about what the intention is when the game was invented, but in my opinion, the athletic beauty of the game is lost when you have snow. And when I say athletic beauty, I know that's not the right word you want to use with a football kind of sport. But the fact is, their talent shines when they're given a chance to catch the ball, as opposed to have 4 layers of gloves.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. And a quarterback who, he needs to feel the ball. Some of them. McLeod was talking about not wearing gloves, that he wants to go with his bare hand because he doesn't like the gloves in the way. The gloves are a layer that he has to deal with. And I think in a way, for us that watch the game, whether you cover it or watch it or you're a fan, you're kind of wearing gloves when it's a snow game. When the weather's reasonable, then we get to really see how the running backs can cut. We can really see some of the routes that the receivers run and some of the catches that they can make. Because that's what I look forward to when I watch football, the big plays.
So I'm just getting the comments up on here. Is Toronto super overmatched?
No, hell no.
Okay.
No. And I'm not saying that because I've covered the Argos. They're a team that came within a whisker of beating them this year, and they're a team that they have found this year. Anybody who's followed them closely knows that from the beginning of the year towards the end, They were a team that won games they had no business winning. But that's what great teams do. Great teams win when they play badly. And the Argos have played not well and won. The last game, I think, is the first time they've actually won a game front to back and done it in the kind of style that they did last week. When the chips are down, this team has gone through so much heck. I asked the coach, in fact, I said, in the Nova Scotia game, when they went, to TD Atlantic, they were playing Saskatchewan, and both those teams had a terrible reputation for discipline issues. They were not playing well. And look what happened to Saskatchewan. Look what happened to Toronto. And that's due to the veterans that the Argos have. They turned that into a positive. It's not easy. They did it. And I think that's made them, a lot stronger. But they're still up against a team that's won 2 Grey Cups back to back. I mean, they've got players there. They got Stanley Bryant. They're going to name the award the Stanley Bryant Award now. I mean, when you get a guy like that on your team and he's rallying the team, I mean, we're talking this is going to be a dogfight. I just don't buy into the Argos don't have a chance type thing. That's all.
We have questions in the chat here. A CFL video, and then Act My Age is hopping on this. Jared as well. Even yesterday, one of the first questions up from the media address to Ambrosi, we're talking about expansion, Halifax, whatever. Like they said, the question is, do they need to stop talking about expansion and get going on issues, whether it's smaller markets like London, Windsor? Like, what do you see? What is the next step here? I mean, we've heard 10 teams since the 80s.
Here's the problem. That they have, Halifax is not in the mix right now. City council is not doing anything. They're not offering any money. And this isn't going to happen without some money. Historically, in Canada here, the governments have historically said, no, pro sports don't get nothing from us, not even for stadiums. They got to do it all on their own. So the bottom line is, where's the money going to come from? So to answer your question, it may have to come from an alternative market, one that has a football history, a football background, like a London. That's not a bad choice to talk about. Some people even talk about Windsor, because of the Canadian that owns the old stadium there. If they can turn it into something like a 25,000 seat stadium, maybe they can put a team in Windsor or Detroit. What I'm afraid of is that we're not getting a lot of answers from the upper echelon of the league. They're not putting anything out there as far as what do you think? What do we have to talk about? What do we have to discuss? Put some lines of interest out there for communities that might be interested in the team. Like, who knows they have a shot? Who knows they have a shot? What are we hearing? Not very much. And we've got to scratch that surface. If we don't scratch that surface, we're never going to get to the bottom that we want, which is a 10th team. We all know why we need one. We just don't know how to get there. I hope they figure it out.
And I have been covering the CFL for just a fraction of, even our listeners, how long they've been fans of it. But it does seem like it's getting to the point of like the boy that cried wolf here, where even Ambrosi, and he was on my show and at the media, and every time I see him, it's, well, we're going to get 10. It's like, at some point, I mean, we got to go. We're not here. I'm really tired of hearing this like promised 10 team. And like I said, I know it's been going on way longer than I've even been a part of this.
Walking the talk, I think, is the key. And a lot of fans are frustrated. But I have to say something in regards to that. We just came through the pandemic. The pandemic is something that hurt the Canadian Football League, because the Canadian Football League, and I want you folks to hear this, is like no other league, where the teams that made a lot of money or make a lot of money every year, they're not allowed to keep that money. They can't put it in the bank for a rainy day. They've got to get rid of it. So, the way the CFL works, the pandemic really killed them, because, I don't think they have the money to do the kind of stuff they want to do. And now what we've got is what I've seen personally, following the game, following the league. I've seen the game improve over the last couple of years. I've seen it improve a lot in the last couple of weeks. And folks, that's what's going to happen. We're just going to have to be patient. There's going to have to be scratching the surface of what's going to be next. Ambrosi made it clear. A 10th team solves a lot of problems, like how long it takes to play the season. There are a lot of people where we are right now. They don't want to play the game at this time. They want to play a lot sooner. Yeah. And the only way that's going to happen, not the only way, but one of the easiest ways for it to happen, is if there's 10 teams.
You think it's then they can shrink down, get rid of the bye weeks? Is that?
Absolutely. Well, they won't need the bye weeks for one team. They'll be able to have two teams have a bye week, and they won't have. The other thing they won't have, for those of us that had season tickets like I have, they won't have the team that plays on Tuesday and on Saturday. That's a bit tough too, right?
Well, it's a short week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So anything that causes the game to not be as good, we need to try and fix. Whatever makes the game better, we need to find what that is and put that into. And if that doesn't happen, then the game won't go anywhere. The CFL is the most challenged sports league in the world, as far as I'm concerned.
Challenge in terms of just how hard it is to maintain. I mean, what do you mean by that?
Well, simply because it's a league that relies heavily on dedicated fans who can float by the noise that's going around the league. The noise that goes on around the Canadian Football League, it's such a waste of time. I've tried on my show, and what I've tried to do, and what I'm more and more trying to do, is to basically try to be more positive. I think what we've learned from the political world is that if somebody says a lie long enough and often enough, we believe the lie. And I think the lie is that the Canadian Football League is inferior to the NFL. It isn't. The athletes are not as big, not as fast, not as strong, but we're not talking about the players. We're talking about the game. And that's what's best about the CFL. The game's awesome.
When you hear that, I mean, what do you say on your show to combat that?
Well, I basically now what I have to say and what I truly feel in my heart about the Canadian Football League is that we have to try and look at the league from a perspective of what we want, based on expectations and the realities of what the league is, and don't over expect. Watch the game. Don't judge it before you go to the game. Don't judge it until you watch the game, and enjoy the game. The other stuff, like I said, that noise that's around there, what I want people to know, the message I want to put out there is that just give the game a chance. I guess that's a new John Lennon song. Oh, well, he won't be doing any new songs, will he? Too soon?
Anything else before I let you go here? I think we're going to bring on Dorothy next here in a second. We have our second hour here coming up. Anything else for you?
Well, listen, I want to thank you for covering this league, coming from Seattle, being an American that comes here and shows us some respect. Is something that we really like, and all of us appreciate what you do. It's important that we get the message out there, and I hope you can help us get the message out there that the league is a lot better than some people want to think it is, and I mean want to think it is.
Well, but that's the thing. I think that everybody around the league carries it like the most important thing in the world, as they should. I'm a proponent. I've watched professional wrestling my whole life, right? Things only matter as much as we make them matter, right? Pro wrestling does not matter at all, except if you lived it, it matters, and you watch. Friends doesn't matter. Nothing matters, right? So I like that everyone around the CFL does view it as the most important thing in the world. I don't know where the disconnect there is of expanding that on. I don't know what the disconnect is.
I'll give you two cities are the difference: New York and LA. That's the handicap the Canadian Football League has. New York, LA, Chicago. And people in Canada are becoming more sophisticated. They're following things that have to do more out than outside Canada. And unfortunately, the relevance of a game rises if they're playing against, if it's the Raptors playing against the New York Knicks, if it's the Jays playing against the LA Dodgers. That's hard to compete against, which is why I say, and I repeat, it's not the athletes, it's the game. That's what matters. It's what the game is. And as long as we concentrate in the league and Ambrosi and company, make the game better. He talked about the scoring being up and yada, 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 and all that stuff. That's important. It matters. And that's at the end of the day, that's what we need to achieve. And that is a game that is relevant and compelling.
I was going to kick you off here, but I keep having questions for you. So I hope that's okay. I really was. I was going to bring out Dorothy, but in the presser yesterday, Ambrosi said, okay, we have Genius Sports, all this stuff. Page views up 5% year over year.
Right.
Should we have more than that? Should that be more?
You and I both know when it comes to success, it can sneak up on you, but the odds of success sneaking up on you in a business nowadays, you almost have to get bang for your buck. You have to Everything's got to happen real quick. So even if it doesn't matter that it moves real quick, the appearance of it not moving quick enough intimates some sort of failure. But there is no failure. It can work like they're saying, but it'd be a lot better if they all of a sudden had the proof that it's working, and undeniable proof. Then that's where the issue is. Where there's an argument whenever the NFL or the CFL do something. It's a different attitude. The NFL, they talk about how they have the worst thing happen to them. They turn it into a positive.
Yeah, totally.
The CFL does something really good, and somehow they turn it into a negative. How the heck does that all happen?
Well, Frank, I really appreciate it here. Thank you so much for coming by.
My
I
pleasure,
hope we'll
buddy.
see you
Been
tomorrow.
looking forward.
Thanks for hanging out. I'll take that. And then we'll see you tomorrow, Grey Cup. Thanks again, Frank. Frank. We're going to bring on Dorothy here. We're going to bring Dorothy on here for a quick second here. We have Adam is coming here in a minute. We have our guest texting me for hours here. We're going to bring Dorothy on in the interim. Frank, thank you so much. We're going to bring on Dorothy, my wonderful wife, helping me produce today. We'll get this in here now, depending on how we go later in the show. Dorothy, what are you making of your time in Regina?
I think it's awesome. Yeah, it's been chilly, but actually not as chilly as I thought it would be. And yeah, we're having a great time. Fans are awesome. Everyone's so welcoming, just like Hamilton. So yeah, it's been fun.
You see Dorothy sporting her Spring League Jousters jersey here. The one that I had originally bought, too small to fit me. It's a size large. It's still I have a double XL for that. Dorothy, you getting lots of compliments on your Spring League garb here as you walk around the casino?
Compliments, more like confused looks, but yes, I think people appreciate it's just different. They're like, what is that? So if anything, it's a good conversation piece to be like, hey, what is that? So yeah, it's kind of fun to have just a jersey that looks different, stands out, but it's still Winnipeg.
Yeah, Jared says, what the heck is it? TSL Spring League that was the precursor to the USFL. All you USFL fans out there, we podcast getting ready for season 2.
Yeah.
Dorothy, we're back here. We've known a lot of the people last year, coming back this year. Who have you enjoyed? I know you've been talking to Rob here in the background, and Dan, everybody else. What have you made of the CFL media community talking to here now that we're in year 2?
It's good. It's so fun. It's just seeing old friends again. It's like, seems hard to believe that it was just last year we were here, just kind of making the inroads to become friends and connect with all these people. And now it just feels so natural and easy. It's been awesome. I met my friend Jerry on the plane. He's my BFF Lions fan, and he's here. And Rob, we're going to go walk with Rob and Candy tomorrow. We already made plans.
Nice.
And, it's just been so welcome. Everyone's always so welcoming here. And it's been fun. You were on the podcast earlier too with Matt. That was cool.
I was on I was on Rob Peterson's show yesterday.
Yeah.
I was on Matt's. Matt Baker's going to be on here later with Carolyn, the BC Lions on that.
Yeah.
Wayne says Dorothy's jersey looks like it should be a racing car themed team.
Wow.
Well, it is. It really is the University of Kentucky, I think, with just different colors. I do think that's what the Jousters are going for with that. It is so funny how, even when Paul was with us and we're trying to cover the CFL, and it was a lot of like the online, who are you and what's going on? And like, once you're here, it really is like the wall comes down. It is like, if you're on the other side of the wall, but once you get in here, it does seem like people are a lot more affable.
Plus we're just nice people and talk to people. It's one thing to just, you got to just be kind to people. So, yeah.
Thoughts on Regina? I know, it maybe isn't the ideal spot for Grey Cup or travel. I think we were maybe not looking super forward to it. I told Rob, but I mean, what's it been like your experiences here?
It's been cool. Like, we've gone to dinner almost every night, like historical, like the old bank building and the old, insurance building, like just beautiful. And then now we're in the casino and the old train station. Like, it's absolutely beautiful. The architecture and just the buildings. I mean, it's a little chilly walking from place to place, but then I was telling you today, like, once you get to where you're actually going, like, you appreciate it. Like, I don't care what they have here. Like, I'm just happy to be inside. So I've just thought it's been great. I'm excited to see the lake tomorrow. If we walk with Rob and Regina's been a cool city. We went to the party last night, the tweet up, and so that was fun because they had the big the police there and the fun police, and they were running around. giving people tickets for not being fun or not having the gear on. So yeah, that's been fun.
Yeah, Dorothy went viral, kind of famous last night here. Oh, Jared, Jared says it's only November, coming January, February when it's high school. We're cold enough. It's cold enough here. I am surprised at how many historically old buildings there are here. I don't think of Regina. I'm obviously old city in Canada and everything of it. I just didn't think that they would have so many beautiful old, still maintained architectural whatever is around here.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. The first place we went to dinner, they were saying how it's haunted, and then our woman here, Sienna, who's graciously made this beautiful setup for our live show, was saying how the washrooms now, we can't say restrooms, washrooms are haunted from this train station. But the first night, I guess they said the upstairs, the third floor of that building was haunted. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of beautiful history and architecture here. So yeah.
So Adam, our next guest, is coming. He's texting me. He's on the way. So, but you're here. I figured we get this in now. Depending if we run long, you can always come back on. Wayne has a question. Have you taken in any of the Grey Cup festivities? Like you said, we did the tweet up last night.
Yeah.
We did the. I know we're going to go tonight to the BC Lions and the Argos. Their spirit. It's not the Spirit of Edmonton. I believe it's like the team parties.
Yeah.
We were
I want to go to Winnipeg.
And then we were with the BC Lions today when we did the podcast up there on that. I know Rod had the big party last night at Ballers that I didn't realize. I guess we could have come back for that, but it really is like a surplus of riches. Like you can't go to everything, so you kind of have to pick and choose.
Yeah. Because I heard a lot about that party too. That sounded fun, but there's just like stuff every night, and it's like you have to kind of choose where you're gonna go, right? But I feel like everywhere we go is just like greeted with just friendliness and interest and engagement, and it's just been great. Just like Hamilton, and like we were saying earlier, you can never quite know like how it's gonna go here, but everyone's just so friendly, and it's just been a great time.
Were you surprised? And our next guest is coming. We timed this perfectly. We'll get Adam on here in just a second. We even like when we went to that tweet up last night, because you're like, okay, what are we doing here? Who's coming? I'm like, I don't really know. They asked us to come, and but then you see, Adam shows up, everyone's there, everyone knows each other. Like, what did you make of that, and how you're kind of all strangers, but y'all kind of know each other?
Yeah, it's like strangers, instant friend. Like it's not really, it's just instant friends with people, and doesn't even matter that we're American. It's just we just meeting people and like hearing people's stories, and it's really cool to connect with people. And I just love it. I just love getting to know people and hearing their story, and it's really cool. Everyone's just been really open and not, like, who are these Americans, So it's been cool.
Well, perfect. Yeah. Well, thank you for hopping on here. We're going to bring on Adam, Dorothy. People are excited to see. Jenna has a question in the chat. Any Red Blacks fans? Really hasn't been too many Red Blacks fans here, but there has been a lot of Toronto fans. We have Adam Gosse here. I would say, like, lead in the world of Toronto, just the biggest super fan in the world. What's it been like for you? Thank you for coming. I appreciate it,
Reed. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
It's good to see you. What has the week been like for you? I just saw you last night at the tweet up, and then I was amazed was I was amazed that I saw you guys back at the breakfast this morning. I was still sleeping. I saw the tweets like 2 hours ago. Adam's doing this. What has the week been like for you?
Well, much like a CFL season, Grey Cup Festival is a war of attrition. It's all about survival. So it's been a great week. It's always a great week. Grey Cup Festival is fantastic. It's like old home week, right? You get together and you see friends from all walks of life, all across the country. It's a lot of fun. You got to pace yourself. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You got to make sure have a little H2O every now and then. You'll notice that my voice is a touch hoarse, but well earned. A lot of talking, a lot of hooting and hollering, a lot of woos, and a lot of sociables this morning at the Spirit of Edmonton breakfast.
Talk about that for people that aren't here, because we're getting a lot of like, how have the parties been? How's everything going? Obviously last year Hamilton a little different, right? Just with everything and COVID and all that. But now, how's it been like now for you as someone that's been to these before?
Well, first and foremost, it's nice to be a little bit removed from COVID restrictions and things like that. Everything's a little more open up and free, and everyone feels a lot better, a lot more comfortable about getting together. So there's that. Regina doesn't get a Grey Cup very often. So I understand that this city really appreciates the opportunity when they can to throw a great party. And I think the festival organizers have done a fantastic job welcoming CFL fans from across the country and showing us a great time.
To me, it certainly feels like, I mean, you could kind of put this in any city. I like, and we were talking to brunch today, you know, I like how, not that we would not want Toronto to get a Grey Cup festival, but everyone here knows what's happening. Where even in Vancouver in 2 years, I'll be curious to see what that looks like, right? Do people know what's going on? Like, everybody here, whether you're going to the game or not, knows this is happening this weekend.
Yeah. Well, there's really no such thing as a bad Grey Cup festival. Every city has their turn doing it, and I've never been to a Grey Cup where I haven't had a good time. I think if you do that, you're probably in the wrong spot. A lot of people are partial to having a Grey Cup in Vancouver because you don't have to worry about the weather. In fact, I'm sure there are certain CFL circles that want a Grey Cup indoors every year. I happen to prefer the elements. I think Mother Nature is a great equalizer. But I'm looking forward to Vancouver. I mean, I know that the commissioner especially is looking forward to seeing what Amar Doman and his team can do. There's a lot of buzz, a lot of hype around that fan base, a lot of excitement. And I think it's going to be a fantastic event. I can't wait. I'll be there.
Yeah, no, we're going to be there. Like I said, road trip up from Castle Markcast in Seattle. It's not too far. In terms of the Argonauts, you know, big weekend. We've been lots of, you know, McLeod, and we've been partying, but like I hear, okay, he's down on Ambrosier, he's retiring, and now he's like getting cut off at the podium because he's crying. Or I haven't seen any of it. So like, what's been happening in Argos world right now?
Well, I don't want to speak on McLeod's behalf. Yes. McLeod has his own thoughts, and that's wonderful. I do applaud McLeod for speaking his mind, because I think the players need to speak up a little more often. I think they need to they have every right to defend themselves and the players in this great league. Sometimes if you're an American player up here, you might feel underappreciated, and that's understandable. I also think that their focus is 100% where it should be on this game. McLeod Bethel Thompson had arguably his best game as an Argonaut in the Eastern Final. And I think this football team is playing its best football at the best time. And I for one, am excited about seeing what number 4 can do tomorrow.
You know, Winnipeg, heavy favorites.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't like that. I mean, I like a little more evenly matched. I felt like last year was the same thing. I'm like Hamilton. And then they really kept it interesting, right? We go to overtime. We had all the, you know, the Rouge and all that other stuff going on. But what do you make of it? Does Toronto have a puncher's chance?
Absolutely. First of all, it's one game, 60 minutes, anything can happen. But in terms of X's and O's, the Argonauts have beat this Blue Bomber team in 2019. They took a victory in 2021. They played against the Bombers this year at BMO Field. It was a 1-point missed extra point loss. So I think the Argonauts match up very well against the Blue Bombers. I think everything comes down to whether or not they can curtail Zach Collaros. You know, we ran the ball well against Winnipeg this season. Our defense played exceptional, but that Bomber team still found a way to score points on us. So I think if you can keep Collaros pinned, you've got a fighter's chance, like you said. I think if you get into a shootout with the Bombers, they're going to have some issues.
Yeah. So what is the Argos game plan?
Well, I think it's really simple. I think it's get pressure on Zach, make him feel uncomfortable, and score early. I think if the Bombers score early, it could be there could be trouble. McLeod has shown that he can play well from behind in the fourth quarter, but I think this Bomber team is just too strong for that. They do have to establish a running game early. They've got to play almost flawless football, disciplined, clean.
Jenna, and this is derailing, but I just thought it was too funny to pull this over. We're asking about poutine. Are you a fan of the poutine?
Are you kidding?
I haven't had it.
What?
Yeah, I know. I feel like I've eaten really heavy here.
Oh my gosh!
The last thing I need is poutine.
First of all, for our francophone listeners, it's poutine.
Poutine.
But it's fantastic. I don't know, and I guess our rider faithful can probably help me out here. I don't know where you can find good poutine in Saskatchewan. Yeah. A little more of a Quebec thing, but it's definitely a national food and certainly worth trying.
One thing that I think is really interesting about the matchup this weekend, besides obviously exceptional quarterbacks, defense, everything else on both sides, coaching staffs, right? We have Dinwiddie here coming in, second full season, right? Head coach. Mike O'Shea, just won the award the other night. Is like the pinnacle. I think Rod Peterson was saying like he would put him on the Mount Rushmore of all Canadian athletes of any sport, both
Hard to argue.
football and. So I mean, talk about that. You have two like elite coaching staffs here working against each other.
So there's that's just one of the many sexy storylines that go into this game. You've got Dinwiddie versus his former team, O'Shea versus his former team, Andrew Harris coming back, so on and so on. But Dinwiddie would be the first one to tell you the key to success is to surround yourself with good people. And even though Dinwiddie and both Dinwiddie and O'Shea were up for Coach of the Year, it's because they've both got exceptional coaching staffs. And Ryan Dinwiddie, he's had a lot of success as an Argo head coach. But you look at Kevin Iben and Coach Costanza and Mickey Donovan and Corey Mace on the defensive front. These guys have really prepared this team to play at a high level day in and day out. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do tomorrow. Talk about game plan. I know the assistant coaches have been working their butts off all week long. I can't wait to see what they come up with tomorrow.
Well, because that's my thing I get like CFL and the coaching and the the caps and being able to bring it back. So you hear all this, right? And here we've even had turnover this year, in Montreal and in Ottawa and all that. But then you do have some of these coaches that are like absolutely, could excel in any sport and anything. Just truly great leaders. So I like that, right? I like that as, okay, we have some of this, but also, so my question is like, how do we get more of that and highlight that of these like exceptional, individuals we have coaching these teams?
That's a great question. I think I'll speak from a national perspective in terms of Canadian. I think we have a little bit of an issue with minor football in Canada. Though obviously there's a lot of discussions about player safety that are discouraging families from having their young kids play football, both young boys and girls. I think that high schools have really scaled back arts and sports in school. So there's minor football programs that have been canceled or at least have been minimized. So we need to do a better job of bringing back the fundamentals of football in schools and Pop Warner programs. Pop Warner is an American term, but minor football in Canada, and supporting these programs and encouraging them. So I understand there are some player safety issues to work through, but it's a great game. It's worth investing in. And I think that'll get interest in not only coaches but players, officials. We have an officials issue too. We were at the CFL Awards on Wednesday night, and most of the Canadian officials will tell you they're a dying breed. It's hard to find officiating these days because they're so ostracized and vilified. No one wants to do it. So, and these are Canadian issues.
I saw you, and I think it was you were the one that I saw the tweet of before I was going on yesterday. You were at the fan, presser, right, with Ambrosi.
Yes, sir.
I heard it was tense.
Well, it usually is.
But with the fan one, that's what surprises me.
Right.
The media one is always intense, but the fan one.
Well, there's a lot of very passionate football fans in this country, and there are some answers to questions that, for very obvious reasons, the league is reluctant to divulge or share any intricate detail with. So it's tough. It's tough when a fan wants answers to a question that they can't get. But there's also a lot of very strong opinions about what's right for this league. So, and I know Randy appreciates that. He wants to hear those voices. There's only so much they can do currently, but it's wonderful to see that there's still a beating heart for the CFL.
Let's go. Well, I see our next guesser here, very time sensitive. I'll bring on in just a second. We have Farhan and Dave Naylor here. I know they're time sensitive, so I'm going to bring them on.
Absolutely.
Adam, you have excelled today. I really appreciate you coming and texting me that you were on the way. I'm
Good to see you, brother.
But I want you, just before I let you go, in a nutshell, what has this week been like so far for the people on the ground here?
Well, look, anytime you're at a Grey Cup Festival as a fan, it's a great time because you get to celebrate this great game with the people that you love. It's extra special when your team is in the big game. And, as an Argonaut fan, I've been spoiled. This team hasn't lost a Grey Cup since 1987. So, it's a tall task to win 7 in a row, but I feel good about our chances.
All right. Well, I hope like I said, are you coming? You said my bags have been packed since June. I appreciate you coming today, and we're going to come later to the Argos thing tonight. I really appreciate it.
Ray. Good to see you, brother.
Thank you so much. Adam Gosse here. We're going to bring in Naylor and Farhan if they want to come in right now. Time sensitive, and then we'll bring on our next guest. We have a couple people standing by, but we'll bring them on now. If Farhan wants to come on as well, we'll get them 2 for the price of 1 here. Working through TV hits and everything. I really appreciate it. Having beers with these gentlemen the other night. This is going to be fun. We're undressing. We're getting our warm coats off. We can bring them down here. Mr. Dave Naylor, Farhan coming on. We've gone a little smoother than last year. Last year was a little tough technical. This seems good. How are you guys doing today? And hopefully you can share the mic with that. But how are you guys doing?
We're doing really well. I think this has been a pretty smooth Grey Cup from what I've seen. You know, it's seen enough of these to kind of know the rhythm of these things. Lots of good talking points. We always try to, put a foot into the off season and look ahead a little bit. We can't answer all the questions, but we can tell you what the questions are, and we can certainly speculate on the answers.
Well, and on top of that, look, I'm really impressed with the difference between last year and this year for you, because when we got here, Jagarrett Davis was at the front, told us exactly where to go and escorted us right down here. Like Jagarrett Davis, 6th straight Grey Cup, and he knew where Reed Show was, and he's like, no, come with me. That's impressive.
And I got to add, I think the Canadian media is really deeply appreciative of the effort you have made 2 years in a row, to come to the Grey Cup. I mean, I think it's great. I saw you in the FRC suite the other night. I knew you were coming here anyway, but I really think it's great that you're here and, presenting this brand of alternative football, to your audience.
That's good. Hand Farhan this mic. I'll work with you on this one. Farhan, we have a question for you from Cole. Did you pack your sandals?
I did. In fact, they're in my hotel. If I had a chance to go to the room before coming here, I probably would have put them on. But, you can't wear them on Grey Cup Sunday outside. You know what I forgot, truthfully? I brought my sandals. I forgot my parka.
Typical BC move.
I had given myself an hour to pack on Tuesday. And right at the start of that hour, the Nathan Rourke, Adam Schefter tweet broke. So now I'm in work mode. So in the end, I had about 10 minutes to pack for a week in Regina, threw everything in, got to meet up with my wife so she could drive me to the airport, realized I'd forgotten my parka, so she had to FedEx it here. And I will have it for the game, but I won't have sandals on.
For both of you guys, Dave, we were talking the other night. You said if anyone ever asked me who's playing quarterback in Saskatchewan next year, I won't know. So who is playing quarterback in Saskatchewan?
It's the most intriguing question of the offseason because you can't answer it without intersecting on about 5 other storylines from this offseason. And, the answer is I don't know. And I don't think the riders know. I mean, you would think it's impossible that it's Cody Fajardo when they didn't play him for a meaningful game this season. They sat him down for a backup who frankly didn't have the resume that would suggest he was ready to win that game. And I don't think you can circle back. So then you've got to decide if Bo Levi Mitchell signs in Hamilton, do you consider Dane Evans a starting quarterback? And do you look at some of the struggles he had with the spotlight in Hamilton and wonder how that might project to the spotlight in Saskatchewan? And then you start looking at, is Trevor Harris definitely going to be back in Montreal, or could you get him? Do you have to look at some combination of guys like, Nick Arbuckle and other players that haven't been able to hold starting jobs? Or do you take a shot at a backup, who you think might be, you never know what you have, right, until the backup plays. Like I threw in a name like a Chad Kelly, who's been in the league for a year, high pedigree guy. The Argonauts like him a lot. I think if McLeod retires, there's a decent chance that Chad Kelly is the starting quarterback for the Argonauts next season. If McLeod doesn't retire, he's only under contract for 1 more year. Would it be that hard to get him out of Toronto? I don't know. And again, that's one that I'm not trying to start a rumor on. I think I may have, but I just look at logically and say, not every team is going to start next year with a starting quarterback coming off a good year from last year. Somebody's going to have to take some risk and roll the dice on somebody who he's either never done it before or is coming off a disappointing season.
Same question for you.
Well, a lot of it's going to be tied into who the offensive coordinator is going to be, right? So we talked about today that they've got some interviews scheduled for next week. Kahari Jones, who's also going to be in the mix for the head coaching job in Ottawa, is going to interview for the OC job. So he's going to wait, obviously, to see how that Ottawa job plays out. And then you've got Mark Mueller, who's the quarterback coach in Calgary, that's going to wind up interviewing. And maybe he wants to take a run at an offensive coordinator job for a year. But do you want to go into that situation with the head coach on the final year of his deal and not knowing who your quarterback's going to be? Or do you think maybe if he goes there, it might encourage Bo Levi Mitchell to go there? I don't know. So, and then Kelly Jeffrey, longtime U Sports coach, who's the running back coach in Saskatchewan right now, is also going to be a person of interest, and they're going to interview him internally as a potential OC candidate. And there might be some in this game as well. So that's going to tie in a lot. And I got to be honest, it's kind of slim pickings at both. There just aren't enough good ones. And that's a bigger problem and a deeper topic that this league's got to get into.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. There's a lot in the chat. People mad at me that I call the CFL alternative football.
Yeah,
Also,
it's primary football. The other leagues we call alternative football because this isn't spring football. It's summer football. You can't call it alternative. It's been around for 100
I would
years.
say for America,
come on,
you
Reed.
can call it alternative professional football.
Hey,
I'm comfortable with that.
No,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
there are strikes in the U.S., they watch Canadian football. You can't watch alternate football.
I also had here that they said Reed, Farhan, and Dave, CFL media royalties, so that's good. Does the CFL have a incoming, especially now, USFL, XFL? Yeah. I just did an 8.5-hour live draft the other day talking XFL quarterbacks. Does the CFL have an upcoming quarterback problem, even not just in Regina?
Yeah, I think it's going to have an upcoming player recruitment problem, and the quarterbacks are going to be the most acute example of that. And like I've talked to people in personnel recent weeks and months and asked them a little bit about what it was like to try to sign players this fall. It hasn't been easy. And, it's not a bias against, Canada or the Canadian Football League or anything. When you're looking at players that are sitting on that NFL bubble, it's just a logical choice. The entry-level pay for a CFL salary is about the same as it is in one of these alternative leagues in the States. The difference is the CFL asks you for a 21-week season, and those leagues are asking you for 10. And they're going to spit you out in time that if you can get an opportunity in the National Football League, you can go right into a training camp. The CFL season ends in early November. You're not eligible to go to the NFL, even if somebody had a need next week. You've got to wait till training camp of next summer. So from an agent's and player's perspective, at least those guys that believe that they are future National Football League players, which would be all of them, they all believe it, or certainly the vast majority, that's going to be a hard sell. It's going to be a very tough sell. And I think this league is bracing, for a period where that as long as these leagues are in existence, player recruitment is not going to be what it was.
Well, and especially from a quarterback perspective, because now you got to learn a new game, right? So even if you're Chad Kelly and you're wildly talented, you come up here and you're going to be 2 years before you start, right? Whereas you could stay down there and play the same game, and agents can turn around and say, PJ Walker, Taylor Heineke, John Wolford, and it just seems a little more real, right? And you get covered locally down there. You come up here, and it feels like you disappear for a bit. You've got to learn a new game. It makes it harder to evaluate when you go down there. So, you can debate how much it's going to affect on other positions, but I think it's definitely going to affect at the quarterback position. And the guys, you won't notice it in 2022 or 23. You'll notice it in 2024 and 2025 when those guys have had their 2 years apprenticeship, but now they're not here this time.
Yeah, and I think that's to Farhan's point about quarterbacks. We always say that from the minute, you go to your first camp, with rare exceptions, if your guys played American football your whole life, it's 2 to 3 years, right, of practice and film and mentoring until you're ready to start games. Well, when we get those guys like Zach Caleros came here at 22, right? So he's a starting quarterback in this league at 25, 26. If the Zach Caleroses of the future are going to go to the XFL first or the USFL, put in their time there, and we start getting these guys at 25, 26, as opposed to getting them at 22, 23, then you got to tack on that development time. I mean, you get quarterbacks that aren't ready to start in this league until they're nearly 30. So guys move on with life sometimes, man. Like sometimes if you don't get them here early and get them to see the possibilities in the Canadian Football League, it's harder to sell them on it when they're 27, 28, something like that.
We have a lot of questions here. It's not Nathan Rourke, but a lot of questions for you two about Curtis Rourke people have put on. They said, and we'll try to hit these. Leon, will Curtis Rourke be the first pick in the CFL draft?
I think so.
Well, not this year. He's not in this draft. A year and a half from now.
When he decides that he wants to do that, because the CFL evaluators will view him as a bubble NFL guy. Now, there's a lot more to come with Curtis, right? Because he's got 2 years. We'll see if he does it. We'll see what happens with his injury. If he's not hurt and he's able to finish the season this year, does he choose to transfer next year? If he blows it up at that point and has a great year at a Power 5 school, the narrative around him is going to change for the NFL draft. But if he stays at Ohio, does another year because of an injury, and then becomes a late round NFL pick, yeah, he absolutely could be the first overall pick in the CFL draft because Nathan's paved the way. And if you can get a guy like that, Nathan's the unicorn. Everybody's going to take a flyer on the next unicorn who just happens to be the brother of the last one, right? So, yeah, I could completely see a scenario where in 2024, he's the number one overall pick.
Yeah, you don't have to go very hard to find people in football, either, at the professional scouting level or college, who believe that Curtis Rourke is a legitimate NFL prospect. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that differentiates him, one, he's playing in a more pro-style offense, so he's throwing the ball down the field, more like in an offense that looks like the National Football League, and he's 6'5", which he told me, he said he had a 2-inch growth spurt at 21. I said, isn't that fortunate? That just came along and dropped out of the sky. Yeah. And so, and even when we were talking about the possibility of him transferring, I talked to somebody at a Division I program the other day and asked them, with Curtis Worth getting these national TV games, is this going to up his stock if he wants to transfer to Power 5? And the guy says, no, everybody at Power 5 already knows who he is and have done an evaluation. This may be confirming what they already know, but this isn't like eyes wide open all of a sudden because he's on national TV. And, if he gets there and does well, the only way, not the only way, but one of the ways that Curtis could fall from being the first pick of the draft is if people just see that he's going to get a really good opportunity in the National Football League.
Yeah, someone here said Ottawa could take him as number one, just as like a lottery pick, if he comes up here. But we had a lot of questions too about American expansion, or even TV rights. That's more what I mean. That Ambrosi said yesterday. We're working towards something. It feels good, but I don't have anything to share yet. What do you guys both make of that? And should they get? They said this on here. ESPN2. They only had 40,000 viewers for the East Finals, but it's like that's 40,000 viewers that literally dove 18 pages deep into ESPN Plus to find it. So, what do you guys think of American TV deals coming up?
This is one I've been down the road on a long time, and I go back to the U.S. expansion days as well. But for years, the messaging on the CFL and this has always been the same. Hey, we're giving away our property to some American networks, or we've got a deal that's mostly about exposure, but a little bit about money. And the hope is that someday you're going to monetize this thing. Well, like I've been hearing this for 30 years, right? And they've been on the NFL Network, they've been on USA Network, they've been on ESPN, they've been everywhere. They dance all around the place. One of the things they're doing, working with Genius Sports, which is their data marketing company, for lack of a better expression, has been trying to position them to get a U.S. TV deal. And with all due respect to these alternative leagues in the U.S., I think the time when there's the biggest void and people actually would want to watch football is June, July, and August, right? Because you're only up against baseball. You're not up against the NBA. You're not up against the NHL. The NFL is essentially like mothballs for the month of July. There's no NFL news. Like there's nobody in the buildings, basically. So that to me, and you got all these guys that have played in major college programs. People don't even know they're still playing football. Then you tie the gambling thing into it. People love to bet on football. It feels like there are a number of factors here that should be producing an opportunity. And the economy of scale in the CFL, if you got a U.S. television deal for $10 million U.S., and you could cut a check for every CFL team for $1.1 million U.S., which is about 1.4 Canadian. I mean, that's 25% of your salary cap covered with one U.S. TV deal. So it can be significant.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. And, we're hearing that there could be a multi-layered U.S. TV deal, or that's what they're working towards, that could be worth maybe 4 times as much as what they're currently getting. So there's going to be some digital component to it and some network component to it, right? And Dave's right. The timing matters. In addition, we slowly are seeing the CFL schedule trickle up the calendar a little bit, right? So there's a debate as to what the final end date for the Grey Cup is. We've heard some things about an early November Grey Cup as early as next year. Randy Ambrosi kind of cooled that a little bit by saying the calendar will get compressed that way when we get a 10th team, and you don't need 21 weeks to play 18 games. So I think that's miles away from happening. But if it ever does, that's the simplest way. Or, maybe we do see a scenario at some point where they just move the start of it up a couple of weeks and see where they go. Because, again, makes you go head-to-head with hockey and football, NFL less, and you do more in those void times.
And I think, your point about 40,000 when it's buried on ESPN Plus, and like people have to go find it. You'd have to go look for it, right? Where you want to get this onto, one of the main networks, ESPN or ESPN2, for instance, or something comparable to that, and then promote it. Like that's the other thing is you want to get a promotion. People know that it's going on. And yeah, this is unscientific, but I've looked at ESPN ratings in the past, like, the years, and you look at, CFL tape delay game, MLS live game. How come we have a bigger audience on a tape delay than they had on a live, and they have a $1 zillion contract, and we're giving our property away? I just, as a layman, I'm not a television executive. I'm on television, but I don't know the business of television. But just looking at that as a layman, you look at it and say, well, you would think there's some potential there if you actually put these games on. Again, most of them are on live now, but live, and promote them and tell people about them and not make people surf through 19 pages to find it on ESPN Plus.
I'll try to get you guys out just because I know you're busy. A couple more questions. I did have, I chuckled when I saw this stuff. Leon wants to know, can we get a double congrats from Dave Naylor here? And I will say, I accosted Justin Dunk on the sidewalk last night. I think you guys came to the suite too late, but Dorothy and I were walking to dinner, and I saw Dunk there. I thought, why not now? Why not now to kind of like burn this bridge and be okay with it? But what do you? I mean, just reactions to anything happening.
It's funny how people remember that, right? Look.
What are you talking about? I don't remember it.
No,
What-
we got into a bit of a Twitter argument where Justin suggested I did not give proper credit to some reporting the Three Down Nation had
Oh,
done.
yes.
We
yes.
disagreed on some of the semantics and logistics of it. And when he came back at me a second time, I had already told him congratulations on something. And when he came me back, I wrote double congrats. And that has come back at me a few times. I'm not trying to be Justin and I, we get along. It's okay. But we had a minor Twitter spat. And yes, double congrats seems to have stuck with some people. So yeah, double congrats there. I'll give you a shout out on double congrats.
I did ask Dorothy last night. I said on a scale from 0 to 10, of like 0, I want to give you a hug. 10, I want to like stab you in the throat. Where was Dunk last night when I saw him? Dorothy said about a 7. That was about where we were at.
I didn't see him last night, so I can't comment.
Last question for you guys. Serious. We'll get both in there. We'll get on your way, and I'll keep you guys. The big news that wasn't news during the media conference, but obviously everyone's talking about the Saturday playoff games. We've had lots of conversation on it. I guess we'll start with Farhan on this one. I just tweeted last week, why did we not have the games on Saturday? Ambrosi was listening, I think.
Yeah, well, for sure. You've got a lot of sway in this league. But, you know, when you look at we attempted this back in, I think it was 08 or 09, somewhere in there.
It was the year of Cam Wake's last season in the CFL. I remember that.
Yeah, and the ratings weren't necessarily good for it for the Saturdays. And there were some other circumstances around why that happened, and they escape me right now. But I think it makes sense for a number of reasons, right? Why do you want to go head-to-head with the NFL? You're more likely to attract an NFL audience than an NHL audience. I would take the risk of going up against the Leaf game. But you could also get both games done early enough in the day that you don't have to go up against the Leafs game. You know, on top of that, fans are used to watching games on Saturday. They might be used to watching them on Saturday night, but CFL fans are used to Saturday football. So, number one, not only do it, but commit to 3 or 4 years of doing it so you can try to build audience habits to watching those playoff games at that time. I think it makes total sense. And if it goes well, maybe we see the Grey Cup game on a Saturday at some point.
I'm a little more skeptical about it. And I come from the newspaper business before I was in TV, and there's an expression in newspapers: don't move the comics, because as people know where the comics are. And if you move them,
we do move them. We move them on during the playoffs.
We do, but we do move them. Yeah, it is kind of weird because we're a Thursday, Friday, Saturday league. We only play Sundays on rare exceptions during the regular season, and then the playoffs always moves to Sunday. But it is amazing how the habits. And I remember that time, whatever it was, 10 years ago, I couldn't even get out of my when we played the Saturday playoff games. I could not get it out of my head that it wasn't Sunday. It's just my whole life, Sunday is CFL playoff games. And I started thinking of other things that were going on that day. And no, they're not, because it's Saturday. And the ratings dipped, right? And the league got the yips about doing that. So they went back to Sunday. I tried to get a confirmation today that this is a multi-year commitment, right? That this is not going to be back to Sundays. And I couldn't get it. I think that's the idea. That's where they want to go. But apparently it's going to be reviewed after next year. So we're not like in stone for the next 3 or 4 years like I thought we might be on this one.
But hey, $1.2 million for the Western Final, which is a great number. They don't have an exact number on the East because of how the RDS numbers are factored in, but they're anticipating around 900,000. So not so bad for the finals.
My last question for you is we're talking new TV rights deal, both with TSN and trying to get into America. That was the theory I saw online. Was that the Saturday thing must have something to do with, hey, they're wanting it on Saturday, whatever TV deal we're trying to work out. That must be part of it.
Well, I think that the thing is that we are the exclusive rights holder of the National Football League in CTV TSN is as well. So, and I think this was probably, and again, I'm not speaking for TSN on this, but I assume this was some of the impetus 10 years ago, is that if you've got two massive investments in professional football, as TSN does, both the National Football League and the CFL, and they're both significant investments, from the starting point, it makes sense that you not program them head to head at their most important dates. And I think that's kind of part of the philosophy of it. It's not so much that TSN's trying to engineer the deal to redo it. I think it's just saying, hey, we have a massive inventory of NFL games. We have a significant inventory of CFL games. And do we really want to run our CFL playoff games right up against NFL games? And that's what I assume the conversation is about. I don't think it's anything about trying to change the value of the contract. I think we're through to 2026. Yeah. So, we'll see where we are on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, like I said, it just makes so much sense to not have to compete with the NFL, right? And, it opens the door. I know people in CFL circles have been critical about not having the games on CTV, right? And I don't know if this would open up the door for that by not going head to head with the NFL, that maybe that happens. And again, like Dave, I'm not speaking for our network, but it would make it easier to do that. But bottom line, just don't go head to head with your own important properties.
Although, as you say, it's done pretty well. I kind of like it's done. And as much, obviously a massive NFL consumer. We both, Farhan and I, both spend some time covering that league. But I don't have any problem on a Sunday in November. Look, there's NFL on Sunday night. There's NFL on Sunday morning. There's NFL Thursday, Monday. To me, it's not that big a deal to give up 2 NFL games on a Sunday in a week, in a schedule that has ad nauseum NFL games to watch a couple CFL.
Yeah, for gambling, it's a big deal to other people, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what's also different about when we tried this the last time.
Right, absolutely. Getting people focused on it as a single game. But there will be a don't move the comics crowd.
The league,
Trust
the
me.
CFL is slow to move on this stuff. It took us this long to go back to this for next year, and it'll take long before the Grey Cup ever moves off Sunday.
Awesome. Well, I thank you guys so much. Double congrats to your hard work here this weekend. I really appreciate you guys making time here, and hopefully we'll see each other later if the sweet for a beer later tonight. I really appreciate it. It's good seeing you guys.
Take care.
Thank you, Farhan and Dave Naylor here. CFL.
We only
Brothers.
came because Dorothy invited us, just so you know.
Well, we've had a really good time. I was really I was sitting in the shower today. I thought this might be good.
Cheaper flights to Hamilton probably also than Saskatchewan, right? So a little more flights, and a little more flexibility on that. We hope we see you there next year.
Yeah.
If not, Vancouver in 24.
Just send Dorothy. We'll be good.
Yeah, you guys take Dorothy. All right, we'll give Farhan and Naylor off. Thank you so much. I'll take the mic here. We'll bring on Danielle here. And thank you all so much. Big shoes to fill here. Thank you, guys. We're going to bring in Daniella Ponticelli here, getting lots of comments in the chat about, the Saturday CFL games, all that stuff. Dave Naylor coming on. We also have Darrell Davis standing by. I see Matt Baker here, Carolyn, Cody from the CFL, BC Lions. Lots of people. Daniella, you're going to sit here. Big shoes to fill here. How are you, Daniella Ponticelli?
Yeah, big shoes and my voice.
Rough.
Oh, I got the Grey Cup voice going on, apparently. How cool is this, though, that you had Naylor and Farhan on? That was wonderful. Great to hear them.
I saw you over there yawning. How are you holding up with the festivities going on?
I'm just consider me one of the fans at this point. I'm rolling with it. I'm definitely new to the whole experience. It's my first Grey Cup. And it's been a mix of work and enjoying the festivities here.
Talk about, we saw you at the tweet up last night. I love that because, like I was telling Dorothy, here's something where, everyone's strangers all year. We're able to get together here. You're like, okay, I kind of know you. Like, I kind of look like you're
cool.
What was that like in the atmosphere just on the streets of Regina here?
I was talking to, I think it was one of the Uber drivers in the city, and the energy has picked up tremendously just from the start, on Monday. And one of the things, it makes total sense. The team didn't finish the way that we would have hoped. And that's the way it is.
What do you see? Saskatchewan has a lot of stuff to work on next year.
Yes.
Would you say, and here we are, we have a team that just fired their head coach. We have another team that replaced their head coach. But I think the Rough Riders have, at least top 3 most work to do in the offseason.
Yeah, they do.
So what do you see them doing, or what would you like to see them do?
Ooh, just in terms of where their focus is?
Yeah, we got to get a quarterback here. We're keeping the coach. What do you see people accomplishing?
The quarterback, I'm going to jump on the O-line bandwagon with the offensive line, getting a little bit of veteran presence in there. And I know Micah Tights would be somebody that, we'd be looking forward to having involved there, but also get the defense clicking again, because we were losing mojo big time towards the end of the season. And I don't know if that's just the, reverse momentum of losing so many times and being on a skid for so long, not having a home game win since July 8th. Hopefully we can get that monkey off our back early, as we usually open the season right at home.
I got a good question for you here. Leon wants to know this specifically for you. How do you feel about Saskatchewan fans selling their tickets to Bomber fans? And now I saw the video today. The locker room is blue.
Oh, that one hurt. We knew that was very, very likely when we were out of the Western playoff picture, that whoever wins the West is going to be in that locker room. And we figured it's probably the Bombers. That one hurt. The fact that Saskatchewan fans are trying to sell their tickets, that's not surprising. It makes sense. Everyone's hopeful, right? It's in your backyard. And how cool would it be to watch your team play? Not everyone is going to be willing to do that. So they think let's just sell it. And why not to Bomber fans who can drive 5 hours to get here?
I like it here. We've spent time obviously around this casino is gorgeous. Casino Regina, we're here, but even with Mosaic and you've got the houses right around there, it's
Yes.
it feels a little like Hamilton, where it's like people you can like walk from your front
Yes, you
yard to
can.
go see a game.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's different. I mean, I know Green Bay is kind of like that in the NFL, but it does feel like it's a little different than, your traditional NFL, whatever. As Naylor is coming back through again, grabbing his phone. But talking about that, just how it really feels like it's so ingrained in the community here.
Yeah, I mean, we are just where Mosaic Stadium is featured in the city. Every day you drive by it, and at least I do, and I love seeing it. It's a great reminder of the football that we have in this province, because obviously not just the home of the Riders, but the home of some really great youth sports and junior football clubs too. But it's just got that small town in a big city feel, which is exactly what Regina is. And from what I understand, that is the level of hospitality as well that's being delivered. That nice small town, intimate feel, just in a bigger city.
West is tough in the CFL. And, we've seen BC here, huge, whatever happens with Rourke. I mean, big, growth there. I think people are expecting lots of things from, Chris Jones here coming up in season 2. How do you see the Riders doing? I mean, they really, and even, Calgary, like, it's a lot on them to struggle here to remain relevant in the really tough West.
I was going to say, it's going to be interesting to see the Calgary piece in all of this, Reed, because, I imagine BC coming quite dominant. Again, what's happening with the quarterback situation, we will see. But I still imagine that they have such great pieces in place that they can still be a great contender. I don't know where Regina's going to be in the West. You could just hope that they have better records, but then you consider the records that the top 3 teams in the West had this season, and they were phenomenal, right? Second and third places, 12 and 6. Are you kidding me? So that's a really high bar. We only had 6 wins on the entire season.
What I like about you is you can talk both sides of the football, right? You can talk the X's and O's. You can talk, the crowd and everything building up that way. The game tomorrow, exciting. I am excited for it. I am rooting for the Argos just because I am a McLeod fan. And, Zach's getting paid. He's got his,
he's good.
He's the quarterback, Mount Rushmore, all this kind of stuff here, it feels like. But who do you see tomorrow, and what are you looking forward to seeing in the matchup?
Ooh, I cannot wait to see the run game from both of these teams, because you've got the Brady Oliveira and Andrew Harris connection is so thrilling, not only to see perform on the field, of course, but just from the point of view that Brady learned from Andrew. But I always love a veteran who proves age is nothing but a number. And he has proven that. He was so dominant in the final, right? So I'm looking really forward to that. I do think, though, we could expect to see some nice offense. The weather, Reed, -2. That's a nice forecast. Last week, I was on the sidelines for the CFL Championship, -16. That ball, you could hear it. It sounded like a piece of cement being thrown around, and it was -24 with the wind chill. So what a difference 1 week makes is what I'm trying to say.
Final thoughts here. We'll transition. We got Darrell
Yes,
Davis
I'm
standing
glad.
by here. Oh,
My-
you're great.
My voice
You're great.
this is great.
But I mean, I think Regina has risen to the occasion here. I mean,
think so
in
too.
terms of hosting, and I know it's such this big honor, and we're bidding, and now like that's part of the thing now. Like Amar had to bid to get Vancouver, but like, what do you make of everybody? The good fan support. I see lots of jerseys of every kind. I mean, what do you think? Final thoughts just from Regina.
I have got to say, I'm so proud of the city. I tell people the story. I was one of the many journalists who were there February 2020, before we knew about this whole COVID thing, for the unveiling of all the merch and all the excitement. And boy, was the city hyped. Well, then the world went through a pandemic. We still delivered a great, and like, I was actually happy when we knew it was 2022 we were getting, because I knew that 21 would have to again be so abbreviated. And so anyway, they got to do all the things that they wanted to do. And I want to give a big shout out to the festival and the fact that first time in Grey Cup history, it's all on one site, one footprint. First time as well that there's been free shuttles, free transit. That's high level, next level. And also first time that they're combining some really innovative events like esports into the mix. And the whole idea there is to get young people out. That's what we need. If you're interested in listening to this, young people, come on out, join us. It's a good time.
Well, I really appreciate it. I think we're going to run into you guys later tonight.
Yeah, we will.
Got lots of invites here. I told Dorothy, I said, at least we're not short of things to do here. Been lots of fun invites, lots of cool things to go. So thank you so much for stopping by. Yeah, go get a Red Bull or something here because I think we have a long night ahead of us.
Yes, we do.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Daniella Ponticelli here. I'll take the mic back. Thank you so much. That's okay. I'll shake your hand too here. Darrell Davis coming up next, and then we have Darrin Bauming stopping by here. Do you want to go first? You want to? Sure. Yeah. Then you got to go longer, but that's fine. We got to fill. We got Darrin Bauming here and Darrell Davis coming on. Darrin Bauming of Bonfire Sports here. Give Darrell that mic, and then I'll give you this one. We'll go back and forth on this. Can you make sure that's switched up on the mic? There we go. So we got Darrell Davis, Darrin Bauming here, Bonfire Sports. Everyone, Daniella was fighting through a lot of horse, a lot of Spirit of Edmonton stuff. What has it been like? We'll start with Darrin, then go there. What's it been like a week of here? I mean, you cover the most successful team that I've ever seen in the CFL. I know my knowledge is very short, but what's the week been like?
Yeah, week's been good. You know, I think it's kind of just business as usual. That's the way this Winnipeg Blue Bombers team is, right? It's just they don't let the moment captivate them. They don't let anything get out of their regular reach. They just go out there and say, okay, today is practice day 2. And we're going to work on these things, and then we're going to go back to the room and eat and take care of our bodies and wake up tomorrow. And this is what we're going to do on day 3. And it's that very cliche, overused mantra, right? We want to go 1-0 every week.
It's great that being in Regina doesn't change anything for them.
No, it doesn't change.
It changes everybody else's life.
It does. It definitely does. But they've had a lot of success at this field as well, right?
Yeah, all the playoff success at Mosaic Stadium has come because the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have won every playoff game here. So, we built it just for them.
Darrell, what's it been like here? Lots of activity, lots of action. And I want to talk more, get into the nuts and bolts of the CFL, but we'll talk Grey Cup here for a minute. What's it been like for you and seeing everything happen?
In Regina, well, this is the 4th time the Grey Cup's been in Regina. And originally, they decided Regina wasn't big enough, that there weren't enough hotel rooms. And in 1995, when it first came here, there weren't. We've since built more hotels. The casino is starting to flourish. There's a lot of things. It's still not a huge city, though, right? We're still the smallest city in the CFL. But when Grey Cup comes to Regina, it just takes over. When Grey Cup is in Toronto, when it's in Calgary, even Edmonton and Vancouver, especially the big markets, Montreal, like that, you don't even know it's on sometimes. But this, you can't go 5 paces without having it hit you square in the middle of the forehead. And that's a lot of fun. It's also pretty tiring, Reed.
We have a question here. Leon in the chat. What are the odds that Mike O'Shea leaves after winning this 3rd Grey Cup?
Oh, odds on it? I'll say this. And, I've talked about this a lot on my channel and with an audience that obviously loves Mike O'Shea and the amazing job he's done in changing the culture of the team and all the success and the rest. It's a possibility. I think it's an absolute possibility Mike O'Shea could decide to move on. We know he's from North Bay, Ontario. He has roots, his family, his wife, his kids, all of that in Southern Ontario, playing with Hamilton, playing with Toronto, friends, colleagues, family, the rest. The success has been fantastic in Winnipeg. And you would think a coach like this wouldn't reach the end of a contract, especially with the recent success, current success that he's having and that the team is having. But the reality is he likes to play to the end of the contract. And to me, as somebody who sees Mike O'Shea as wildly intelligent and extremely aware of the intricacies of the business side of things, because the way he advises players and advises friends and other, his own players and players from across the league, he tells them, don't file your retirement papers. You never know if you want to play again or if you get that opportunity. Dealing with contracts and all that sort of thing. He gives them advice. He's very much a mentor.
Why would he leave, though? Why would he leave Winnipeg? He's got to get a job as a general manager. He has to get that offer. Otherwise, there's no sense leaving.
Do you think you'd want to be a general manager?
Yes. Doesn't every coach want to be? They want to run it their way, right?
Sure.
And I know that he and Kyle Walters probably have a decent relationship, but it can always be better if you're in charge of it, right? So if you run the whole show, and that to me is the only reason why he would go. And who's going to offer him that right now? Everybody has a general manager in place, basically.
Sure. So I just think he's maybe doing the 1-year contract or letting the contracts expire just to keep his options open.
Okay.
Tell me one person in the CFL today the one team in the CFL today that would turn down Mike O'Shea if he wanted to be there.
Well, we even talked about that. You and I had that discussion, right? If the Saskatchewan Roughriders say, well, we've got Jeremy O'Day and Craig Dickinson in place, but hey, Mike O'Shea, why don't you come and be the general manager and the head coach? Would he take it? Yes, maybe he would, but the Roughriders can't afford to do something like that. The way the salary cap, operations cap goes, they can't afford to pay those guys out and then pay Mike O'Shea. So I think Mike, as good as he is, it's got to be back in Winnipeg next year.
Yeah, I just feel that he is in such a unique position. He has all the leverage, all the power, and we haven't seen a coach this successful in the CFL really in a long time. In just the culture and how rock solid everything is in Winnipeg. I just feel that it's absolutely a possibility, but whether it happens or not, there's obviously so much under the surface and at play that we don't know about.
We're on the verge of a dynasty here, you guys.
That's right.
They're one game away from becoming a dynasty.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of comments here. He should go to Toronto. He should go to Ottawa. Ottawa should give him full
There's
power.
a lot of places would like him, Reed, but it doesn't work out for him, right? They've got guys in Toronto. They've got right. Pinball's running a pretty good show there.
They're not making changes in BC or Calgary or Hamilton
or Edmonton.
And Montreal. I don't think
decided to, right? So well, maybe, but Danny Machocha is not going to give up the general manager's job.
That's
in
what
Montreal,
I mean.
Right? So people, of course, people would want him. Who wouldn't want Mike O'Shea running your franchise? But I don't know. In the way to be practical right now, it doesn't make sense.
How do you guys feel about the state of the league right now? I mean, last year we had the Genius Sports and we were talking revenue share and all that. It didn't feel, and I was at the thing, with Amber, didn't feel as newsworthy. We got the Saturday announcement, of course, in the fan thing. But how do you guys feel about just the state of everything now? We're 2 years past all the canceledness and all the craziness. Are we in a good spot now?
It's better than it was. It's still coming out of the pandemic. So there's some things that they had to take 5 or 6 steps backwards on. So we're seeing some progress, but and you talk about BC. That's a good news story for them. How the new owners made something, a great quarterback who made lift to the NFL. But the biggest disappointments to me that last year, and they're still noteworthy, the crowd sizes in Edmonton and Calgary. To me, those crowds dipped, and those were two of the most solid franchises, and there aren't people going to those games. And I think that they have a lot of work to do, and it's very disappointing. They're trying to hide it and not talk much about it, but those are two big things that say we as a league, they are still in a big hole that they're going to need to dig out of.
And that said, you look at the other side of the coin, and I mean, I'm with you 100%. Darrell, well said. But where the CFL is good, I think things are very good. In Winnipeg, we're seeing fantastic crowds, young people in their 20s and 30s coming out in droves. You go to a Blue Bombers game in the summer and it's all young kids, and it's the cool kids. That's where they go and they kind of get their weekend started on a Thursday or a Friday night, with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers game. So maybe a bit of a dichotomy in the CFL, but, there is new ownership in some markets, and you hope that the plans to strengthen things continue to, be in that upward trajectory.
Hey, we're going to get bumped. When Mike Pinball Clemons walks into a room,
I just going to say, I see some
man.
shrieking from off camera here.
I can take over, man.
We got Darrell Davis here. Darren Ballman, thank you guys so much. I know this guest time is tight. Yep. We're going to bring him on right now, Darrell. I'll take the mic back. Thank you guys so much. Saw shrieking coming off here. Crowds shaking. I was glad. If you've noticed me looking on my computer, I've been texting one of our friends all day trying to set this up here. We have Mike Pinball Clemons here coming on. Sir, it was so funny. Yeah. I was talking with, our associate to get you on. Thank you so much. And then I was walking by the mall yesterday. I saw you on the phone right after we were getting all this going.
Very good.
Pinball is here. How are you doing, sir? Thank you so much. My name is Reed. This is the Markcast. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Real pleasure. Okay, Reed. It's obviously been a wonderful week. It's this is where you want to be, right? And so we of course have a really strong opponent to go against tomorrow. But I think the guys are ready.
What is the feeling in the locker room there with the guys, practicing and everything else? What is their energy level this week?
I think they're Winnipeg is a really good team, and they're defeated. They, I think, they're not really sure about. No. So the guys have been working really hard this week and putting the game plan together. And it is going to make. I said earlier this week that it's going to take a miracle, but I believe in miracles. And but this is for our guys coming together this quickly, right? So we made a change back in 2020 and didn't get a chance to play it until 2021, and consistent with that, had a great year in 2021, and then almost the whole coaching staff, Ryan Dinwiddie had to replace, and so only one person stayed. And so you're looking at a new defense, a new special teams, right? And Coach Dinwiddie working with guys he's familiar with, but a new group in terms of the players themselves. And so with all of that transition and being able to be where we are at this point, we couldn't be happier.
I love your quarterback. I love McLeod.
Yes.
We covered him because we do all the American football too. So I fell in love with him in the spring league. He played in 2020 during the off year. He came down to keep up shape, game, all of that, whatever. Come back up. Talk about, what do you like about McLeod Bethel-Thompson?
First of all, he's one of the coolest people on the planet, right? When you get to know him, he is just such a dynamic person, a dynamic personality, but defers, right? He really wants to encourage people and build others up. He's a great dad, a great husband, all of these little things. And as a quarterback, he can just flat out throw the football, right? And we're so lucky to be able to have him as our leader on the offensive side of the ball, and he's also proved a lot of people wrong. There are a lot of people who didn't think he would make it to this day, and so it is a wonderful story about a beautiful spirit, a guy who is so dynamic both on and off the field, but is at the same time is so caring and understanding. But is often misunderstood. You don't usually hear all of those things in the same sentence, and to see him work through and push through and just become more consistent as the years gone on, and be in this place, no place he'd rather be.
To me, he just speaks of like, what is the CFL, right? It's like the everyman has worked so hard, has been to all these different teams and leagues, and has struggled and was always the number 2, finally got his shot here, right? And now he's at the Grey Cup. I mean, you couldn't write a better story, right?
You could not. And as a guy who threw for over 4,000 yards in 2019 in a very difficult year, right, where we didn't have much success, then coming back and not retaining his job. We actually went a different direction, and so yes, this was the first year where he started from the beginning of the year as his team, and in doing so, he's pulled the guys together. The players love him, right? His offensive guys will run through a wall for him, and we're so proud of what's transpired.
Leon's got a question here. He says, ask Pinball if he has a couple of returns left in him for tomorrow's game.
Tell him I can return to my seat is about all. Yes. So no, tell him the memory is better than the reality. Yeah.
Talk about your guys' head coach here. One coach of the year, right? Last year, whatever the rookie coach of the year, coming back. Dinwiddie, going up against Mike O'Shea, right? I mean, I was on Rob Peterson's show yesterday. I think you were on either today or yesterday, talking like he'd put Mike O'Shea on the Mount Rushmore of CFL talent, right? I'm sure you would be on there as well. But Dinwiddie going up, but like excelling as much as he has, right, in his 2 years now, two full years. And what have you seen with him and the growth that he's had as a head coach?
Well, yeah, I think the natural thing is how easy he is with the guys, right? He is a locker room guy, and he's one of those guys. But when you become the head coach, right, I think there's a little bit difference, a little bit of trying to figure out what's my new personality here now, and he's a lot easier with the guys in terms of addressing the guys. He speaks and addresses them a lot more fluidly. He's a great football mind, a tremendous football mind. That was never the problem. He grew up in it. His father was a coach, and I think he was 2 years old, and he almost got zipped up in the ball bag. Right, they had started to zip the bag, and so he's been around the game. It feels like forever. He's played the quarterback position, the position that we think is the big thinking position on the team. He's been an assistant coach, and he's done all of those things. And so we were really excited about the opportunity. And we didn't say he was we didn't call him the great one. We called him the next one. And now his time is up.
Well, I appreciate it. I got one more question for you. I know
Yes.
you're busy, and then we got our last guest standing by here. I so appreciate you coming by
Yes.
today. This has been exciting.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
So, whatever happens tomorrow, this is, we all of the Toronto stuff, you've heard, you've heard it to ad nauseum, right? But
Yes.
Toronto's in the Grey Cup, had a successful year, won the East, right? Back here again. What's next for the franchise? How do you keep this momentum going here into the next season with all the goodwill that's been built this year?
So I think it's properly said that we have 2 first place finishes, right?
Yep.
And that's what it's going to take. It's going to take consistency on the field. There's some things that we have to address off the field, but consistency on the field is, I believe, the starting point.
And do you think that you guys have the staff together to kind of accomplish that?
Yeah, obviously, I think being able to watch Ryan grow and what he has done so early. He's such a magnificent young coach. So we have that in place. We have a couple of dynamic young guys on the personnel team. Vince Magri has been with us for now 10 years, and another young man named Alex Russell. So those 2 young guys, and then I got the who was one of my mentors, and Jim Barker. So he'll throw enough questions at us that'll keep us honest, right? So I think from a coaching standpoint, from a personnel standpoint, as well as on the field, we have a great group of guys. I think we are only moving forward.
Well, the chat is excited. We are excited. I
Yeah.
appreciate you coming by today. Thank you so much. And
Well,
I wish you the best of luck
Listen,
tomorrow.
thank you so much. I wish I could chat with them all,
I
but
know.
maybe sometime soon we'll get a chance to do this again. Okay.
Yeah, we'll do it. I appreciate it so
All
much.
right.
Thank you very
Real
much.
pleasure,
Yeah,
okay?
I'll take that. You off, Pinball, the legend here, CFL legend. Let's bring on our final standings today here. Matt Baker and Carolyn here. Gotta follow Pinball. Here we go from America's CFL team here, the BC Lions, rounding out the main event here. Carolyn, I'll give you that mic, and Matt here. We have Matt Baker, Carolyn Cody here, America's CFL team, the BC Lions. Matt, we were so close this year. What happened?
Well, how much time do we have? Yeah, just ran into a buzzsaw. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers are what they are. They've been the best team in the Canadian Football League all season, franchise record wins, and games like that, won and lost up front, and best offensive line in the league was the difference. But no shame in it. We're all very proud of how far we've come, and being here is certainly motivation to be a participant next time.
Carolyn, I'm impressed with the work that's gone in from the BC Lions team coming out here, right? I think that speaks to obviously Amar Doman, the owner, and it just the excitement of all the staff that's involved with the team. Talk about what was your marching orders, you guys coming out here, and what was your goal this weekend to be a part of the Grey Cup?
So for us, we knew that 2024 Grey Cup was going to be awarded to BC, and we wanted to make sure that the fans that travel from across Canada got to experience the best BC Lions event, so that in 24, when they come back to Vancouver, they're expecting even bigger and better than what you're going to see in Regina. So we're really looking forward to elevating the bar on what Grey Cup festivals will be. And, we wanted to bring the whole team to come and experience it because Grey Cup's fun and everyone should have a chance to, celebrate with other CFL fans.
How big was the getting awarded the Grey Cup for 2024?
Oh, huge. You look in history of Grey Cup hosts, and, the game's one thing, but, Vancouver's a world-class city, right? It's an event city, Olympics, FIFA World Cup's coming. This will be, I think, the 17th Grey Cup in 2024. Hey, I've pumped Winnipeg's tires here, and by all accounts, they had a great bid too. But really, it's a no-brainer. Amar said in his first public appearance with season ticket holders that I hosted last October, I think it was, he said as early as then that they were putting a bid together, and it's a credit to Carolyn, Rick, Joan, everybody who's been involved. So yeah, it's a no-brainer.
Thoughts on getting the award of the bid?
I mean, the timing is so perfect for us because it's sandwiched right between some major events for the city of Vancouver. And if we didn't get 24, we wouldn't get it till 27. So that would be a huge long break between not having a Grey Cup there. So the timing worked out really well, and the stars aligned that it doesn't conflict with FIFA or any of the other events that are coming up for Vancouver and BC. So yeah, perfect timing.
I like it that it like you said with Mark coming in, it's like put your money where your mouth is here, right? And what I also like about it is it elevates the importance of the Grey Cup, right? Like we want this to be a coveted thing. We don't want it to be like, okay, well now we got to award it here, and now we got to award it here. Like, just I guess how much pressure do you think it was on Amar and the organization, whatever, like make sure that we got this going this year, or, in 2 years, but to get awarded this year?
Well, let me say, this bid was originally for this year, because you remember Regina was awarded 2020. We all know what happened. Hamilton was in 21. So I think the wheels were actually kind of in motion before Amar bought the team, right? This originally was going to be the year that the Lions bid on it. But, what it was with the pandemic and in Regina, and even you can ask Dwayne Vanoa, our incoming president, he said he's been coming to Regina for the last 4 years, it seems, because it was originally for 2020, this Grey Cup. But yeah, I think once the sale was final, I think it was the type of thing that, he would get a chance to showcase himself and what he's done for this, continuing to do with this Lions team by putting on a Grey Cup festival. So it's been 10 years too, right? 2014 was the last one. I think it will have been everywhere else except Montreal since that span. So it was our time.
Carolyn, what is with Amar Doman coming in and just like feeling like this was long overdue and getting someone invested in the community, and he's been on our show. I appreciate you guys at that. Like just the energy that brings to everybody. I mean, and obviously BC, I think, was kind of on an upswing anyway, both on the field with everything going on, but just it really feels like everything's coming together right now, maybe in a way that the franchise kind of needed for a couple of years. Maybe what's it been like?
It's been so interesting for us because, we had ownership before and, bless David Braley for everything he's done for the CFL and for the BC Lions, but he operated so differently where he knew how to run a football team. He knew what it cost to market, and he wasn't, interested in kind of going outside of the boundaries of what was possible. Whereas Amar, he's a big NFL guy. He travels the world and sees sporting events everywhere and really wants to try things differently. So it was a fun learning curve for my team to, come up with ideas that we never thought we would ever be able to do. And suddenly we're getting approval on the budget to do it. So we're able to flex and do cool stuff and like get people excited about the BC Lions and the CFL again.
Matt, we talked, I was on the First and Now podcast earlier today, right, with the BC Lions. I appreciate that. We talked a little football, a little Nathan Rourke and everything else. Obviously, we want the best for him, right? And we want success for the young man. And I know that we all watch him very closely, but thoughts on the whole situation. And I know that it's a personal situation for all of us sitting here.
Hey, all the power to him. He's 24 years old. He's right in that sweet spot. You look at some of the elite quarterbacks in this league the last several years. Bo Levi Mitchell, for whatever reason, didn't get that opportunity at 24. By the time he sort of evolved, he was too old to try the NFL. There's always examples of guys. Mike Riley was another one. I think he had some workout. I forget where it was. He basically admitted it was a courtesy workout. He knew a guy who was a scout for a team, whatever it was. And they basically never gave him a shot. But as far as Nathan goes, yeah, you're going to explore all your options, all right? You look before the injury, he was on pace to shatter Doug Flutie's records that had stood since 1991. So the NFL takes notice. He may not have been on their radar coming out of college, but he certainly is now based on everything he did in essentially half a season. So, yeah, as an organization, us too, we can't control it. That's for sure. But, time will tell, and it'll be a long process, I'm sure. There's not going to be any snap decision. And I know for a fact Neil McAvoy, Rick Campbell have already engaged in contract talks. So he's going to do a well-deserved restructure should he stay here. And hopefully that'll get resolved in due time. But absolute first-rate kid every step of the way. Just I've talked about his age, 24, but he handles himself beyond that age. Very impressive. And we hope he sticks around because it'll mean great things for our franchise for several years. But we'll see.
Carolyn, were you surprised just how it was like Rourke-mania, right? I mean, it was. And I was surprised too. And, Matt helped, we had Nathan on the show back preseason and, there were all these doubts and like, well, we don't really know, not from you guys, but I'm talking outside of it, other teams say, hey, we don't really know about this. And you said, he's the guy. And, Rick likes him and everyone and Neil's on board and we have all this. But then he comes out and it was just everywhere. I mean, were you just surprised at just how overwhelming that was?
We were all shocked by it. I mean, like we all had faith in Nathan, like the way that we saw him train February in the pouring rain and the snow out in the field, 4:00 in the evening by himself every day. Like the work ethic he put in was insane. So we knew that we had something special, but the city and the country didn't realize that we had it. And the conversation kept on being about the Canadian quarterback. And then the Canadian part dropped and it was just the quarterback. And then talking about it in the people coming back to watch Lions games because they were just excited to see him. So he does so much for the entire CFL. And, we wish him all the best if he is to leave, but you know what? We still think that we have a chance to retain him. So.
Yeah, I was gonna add too. You're talking about the whole readiness thing. I mean, we were surprised, like Carolyn said, but here's one thing people forget: Mike Riley's elbow injury last year. Yeah. Nathan was essentially running the first team offense in practice, right, all season long. People lose sight of that, and quarterbacks like to practice the way they play, and I think the coaching staff looked back at that. And that made them even more comfortable. Because again, Neil and Rick, when they told me Mike was officially retiring and get all that ready, and I asked them, I think maybe Trevor Harris was a name that was available. I'm like, we're going to make Nathan the starter, and we're going to announce that right away. And it's like, so it's a credit to this organization and the guys getting paid to evaluate talent that they essentially knew what they had before we all did, right?
I got a last question here from Cole, and then we'll probably start wrapping it up here. We got our end time here at the casino. I really appreciate them working and you guys sticking around through pinball. Sorry.
Hey, pinball will take a back seat to pinball any day. It's good.
We have a question from Cole, and like I said, we talked about this on the BC Lions podcast earlier, which is going to be good too. But they want to know, Vernon, friend of the show, local guy from not that far from where I live, even. But they want to know what VA brings if he's the starter. God forbid Nathan, all that. But just with the full off season and getting the chemistry and all that together, what does he bring to the team?
Vernon Adams Jr., consummate professional, outstanding teammate. I think I'm repeating verbatim what we talked about on First and Now. Get a plug in for First and Now, but it's not easy to come in mid-season like that and command the respect. I mean, his ability, his talent on the field is one thing, but outstanding teammate. A quick story for you, Cole, and thanks for the question. One of the lowest points of our season, we lost a game in Toronto, 23-20. Sean White had a chance to force overtime, hit the upright. And I cannot describe how the feeling on our bench just dropped, right? Because we knew we essentially gave, with all due respect, they're here representing the East, but we essentially gave that game away almost. The first guy to run over and console Sean White was Vernon Adams Jr. He said, it's okay, man. It's okay. Like, we're going to get this ball back. We're going to get the chance. Didn't get the ball back, but that just shows you the type of guy Vernon Adams Jr. is. So I know for a fact, Neil told me this when they made the trade. I mean, we have a quarterback next year. Hopefully it's Nathan Rourke, but if not, then they're perfectly okay with VA. But I'm a selfish guy. I want them both.
I like that. Carol, anything else to add to that?
No, we're excited to show you what 2023 has in store. Like you thought 22 was special. We got a lot of things up our sleeves for next year.
Yeah, that's what was actually going to be my last question for you. Like, what's next for the Lions here? We got a 2-year ramp now. I mean, we could look forward to some, big for the franchise there. What are the next steps and what are you guys working towards before then?
So I think you're going to see another major home opener, similar to what we did this past year. Big concerts, street party closures. We're going to do it even bigger and better now that we kind of know what the appetite was. You're going to see a lot more street parties. You're going to see something new on the field. I can't tip my hat to that yet, but that's coming in April. But yeah, no, we're looking forward to kind of test running a lot of the things we're going to be bringing in for Grey Cup in 24 in 23. So game days will be incredible.
Well, I thank you guys for coming by. I can't thank you enough for, the help that you guys do with me with the, with the podcast. It certainly is appreciated, compared to all the teams. Definitely the best. Support you guys. And I really appreciate you guys coming out. And I am really excited. I think that, Dorothy and I were talking at brunch today before this. And I think you have a lot of talented people there pushing out content between you and Nick, who I would have had on the show as well. I can only have so many Lions people on the show this year, but I do appreciate that. And I'm excited for everything coming forward.
Yeah, I just want to, in closing, appreciate your support. And I am coming down to Seattle to see the Canucks in January, so I won't big time you. And I know Nick and I came to a Mariners game. We never called you, so apologies. And so keep doing what you do. We need more shows like this. And I'm very, very happy that there's no issues this year. The George Hamilton pub last year, you somehow scraped that one together. I commend you for it, but I'm glad it worked this year.
When I show up and we had a private dedicated IT guy that was like, I've made you your own Wi-Fi network here. I said, I was on my hotspot last year. We damn near ran out of data at the end of the show. I looked and my thing was about melted and it said you got about 5% left on your data. I thought we just got by. So I appreciate it. Hopefully it'll be even smoother next year. Thank you guys again so much.
Thanks, Reed.
Awesome. We'll bring Dorothy in to say goodbye here. I'll take that. Matt and Carolyn here. We have spamming in the chat that I'll get rid of here before we get rid of this. And we're going to bring in Dorothy to say goodbye here. That was it. I hope we did good. I hope you guys are happy. It's not every day you have a CFL Hall of Famer coming by. Dave Naylor, Farhan, Dorothy back to say goodbye here. BC Lions, Darrell Davis, Darrin, everybody else. Dorothy, how was the show from outside the fence post here with everyone that you were talking to while I was on?
It was great. Yeah. So many friends came by. I mean, it was just like bam, bam, bam. It's like one person after the next. It was great. It was awesome. And people loving the water. I mean, Daniella's voice. Yeah. I mean, everyone. It's just like, it's going hard. And it's just a busy weekend for everyone. So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. Everyone saw you work in the room, getting everybody around. Genesis, great show. We've had a lot of comments. Pinball was a big fan.
Good. Yeah,
did you talk to Pinball?
Briefly, but
that's a legend.
Yeah,
that's a legend.
He's a legend. Yeah.
So we appreciate it, guys. Like and subscribe. Wayne says thank you. Jenna says thank you.
How do you feel like the show went?
I thought it went really smooth. I think Darrin and Darrell got a little shortchanged when Pinball came in, but I know that he's so time crunched, trying to fit everybody in. I thought we were going to get more in hour one. We had more in hour two, but that's okay. I think it worked out. They wanted us out of here. We're hitting about 2 hours and 20 minutes. Cole says thank you. We'll enjoy the game. We'll be back regularly scheduled next week, Friday. Big XFL draft recap. I have some good guests for that. I'm sure we'll have a Grey Cup in retrospective and all of that stuff. And so it should be lots of things to come. Appreciate everyone checking it out. Al says goodbye again. And we'll get rid of that here. I'll play the outro music here, the old school outro music again. Like I said, like and subscribe. We'll see you guys.
Go Bombers.
Dorothy, go Bombers. I want the Argos. We appreciate everybody. And thank you guys. Thanks again to Casino Regina and everyone else, all the guests who made this possible. That was everyone taking time out of their day to come here and be a part of this. So we couldn't have done that without everybody. Thank you guys all so much again. And I'll see you next time. 3, 2, 1. Bye.